Purpose has a way of contextualizing life's unavoidable sufferings and making them meaningful and worthwhile. As Viktor Frankl wrote, in some way suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. A noble aim engenders positive feelings. When we pursue what we believe to be a profound and valuable goal, it stirs the best parts of ourselves and others. I am not a man who is prone to regrets. But every year for the rest of his life, Nelson Mandela sent me a message urging me to come spend some time with him. I am an old man, don't delay. But some deep part of me felt unworthy. The world needs Nelson Mandela. Who was I to take up one more second of that man's time? I'd seen Madiba many times over the years, a charity event here, an awards presentation there, only 5 and 10 minutes at a time. On December 5, 2013, I was on a promotional tour in Sydney, Australia. I was watching the TV when the current South African President Jacob Zuma appeared on the screen. Fellow South Africans, Zuma said, our beloved Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, the founding president of our democratic nation, has departed. Nelson Mandela died in Johannesburg, South Africa, just before 9 p.m. local time. He had been surrounded by his family and closest friends. He was 95 years old. Madiba was gone. This was one of the greatest moments of regret in my entire life. How could I not have taken him up on his offer? Over the years, I've done deep soul-searching around that question. He held me in the purest affection and highest regard. It was scary to me. He saw something in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. I think subconsciously I didn't want to spend extended time with him for fear that I wouldn't live up to his impression of me. Maybe I thought he'd ask me to do something or change something about my life that I'd be unable or unwilling to change. Madiba thought I was special. I didn't want to prove him wrong. He has since appeared to me multiple times in dreams, always wearing that same knowing smile. His energy seems to communicate. I'm still here whenever you are ready. 17. Perfection. Year. Movie. Opened. Domestic, USD. Global, USD. 2002. Men in Black 2. Number 1. 190,418,803. 441,767,803. 2003. Bad Boys 2. Number 1. 138,540,870. 273,271,982. 2004. I, Robot. Number 1. 144,801,023. 348,629,585. 2004. Shark Tale. Number 1. 161,412,000. 371,741,123. 2005. Hitch. Number 1. 177,784,257. 366,784,257. 2006. The Pursuit of Happiness. Number 1. 162,586,036. 307,311,093. 2007. I Am Legend. Number 1. 256,393,010. 585,532,684. 2008. Hancock. Number 1. 227,946,274. 624,234,272. I was gonna put the totals, but I thought it might be fun for y'all to add it up with the kids. What you're looking at is arguably the greatest individual hot streak in the history of Hollywood. Note, my editor forced me, against my will, to add arguably. I was running my life like a fight camp. Daryl had become not only my trainer but my mentor and my protector. Ali had been my first Academy Award nomination, and validation of the fight camp way of life. Smith family trivia: the Ali nomination would be yet another award ceremony that I would miss. Willow was 1 year old and was at home with Gammy and had to be rushed to the hospital with a 103-degree fever. She had an ear infection. Jada and I sprinted from the Oscars 6 minutes before the announcement of Best Actor. As we drove away, I saw Denzel win my award on the Jumbotron. For the next 10 years, Daryl never left my side. He pushed me, motivated me, and defended my psychological space for the whole of my cinematic heyday. And he would check anybody. During this run, my team was on fire. Nobody moved how we moved. People in Hollywood were trying to figure out how we managed to be so productive and so successful so consistently. My core group, Harry, JL, Charlie, Omar, Daryl, my chief of staff Jana Barbatoon Bey, my nephews Kyle and Dion, my brother-in-law Khalil Pinkett, family manager Miguel Malandaz, my executive assistant Danielle Demarella, everybody embraced the philosophy of the fight camp. We were building our lives, we were striving for perfection, we demanded excellence from each other and everybody around us, and like the junior black mafia, you could either get down, or lay down. From corporate relationships to extended family and friends, MIA Pitts, property manager, Fawn Boardley, creative director, Judy Murdoch, makeup artist, Pierce Austin, hairstylist, Robert Matter, wardrobe, and all the way to the guys who detailed the cars, everyone had to strive and climb or they couldn't be here. I am a dreamer, and a builder. I picture grand visions, and then I build the systems to make them real in the world. That is my love language. I want to help the people I love build extraordinary lives for themselves. But it demands that they be willing to grind and sacrifice, and most importantly, they have to trust me. And if they don't, it registers as a complete rejection of my love. The team started referring to themselves as the lifers. They were ride or die. It's impossible to build something that is of a higher quality than the quality of the people around you. There's a strange and perturbing success paradox. When you have nothing, you suffer the fear and pain of grinding to achieve your goals. But when you have everything, you suffer the brutal recurring nightmare of losing it all. I had the wife, I had the family, I had the property with the name. I was the biggest movie star in the world, but I started to notice the subtle sickness, a sort of sneaky poverty mentality. I was more anxious and fearful than ever. It all seemed so fragile, one injury, one scandal, or one flop movie away from having to move back to Philly. What if the financial crash of 1929 happened again? There's only one fear worse than the fear of not attaining the object of your desire, and that's the fear of losing it. And opening weekends are the worst of all, pure hell. It's like a presidential election night, everybody scrambling around, trying to cross-reference the 6 p.m. numbers out of Miami with the 7:45 numbers out of Pittsburgh. The East Coast numbers come in first, then you hold your breath for Chicago, then Houston, and no matter how good the polls looked, or how confident you are, deep down inside you know anything can happen. A snowstorm in the Midwest on a Thursday night shuts down hundreds of theaters, killing 12% of your opening weekend box office. And depending on the genre, Siskel and Ebert trash your movie? Another 6% gone. The axiom used to be opening weekend is about the movie star, final gross is about the movie. So, while there are plenty of other factors involved, and many people are going to get fired if the movie doesn't open, the face on the poster takes the biggest hit. It doesn't matter how big your previous movie was, if this one doesn't open bigger, that means you're over, that means moving trucks outside her lake, and all the incoming boxes are labeled Robert Downey Jr. When I was about 9 years old, Dejo took me on a job with him into the basement of 48th and Brown Shop N-Bag supermarket. I'm sure most of you have never been into the basement of a supermarket. I'm not sure I can quite communicate what it's like down there, but let me give it a shot. Imagine an old, creaky wooden staircase, 1 or 2 steps are always missing. Dejo points them out, but to my young mind, these bottomless gaps are not just a tripping hazard, they are gateways to hell. The stairs lead down to a very poorly lit dungeon where out-of-date food goes to die. I'm in charge of the flashlight, we need it because the string of single light bulbs is erratic and flickering ominously. This is the stuff that horror movies are made of, and both Dejo and I are black, so one of us is definitely not coming out alive. Our shoes squeak and squelch as every step sticks to the gunk-caked floor. Decades of broken bottles of ketchup, leaking canned goods, rotted bags of long-since thawed peas, a repository for the unsaleable. These cellars are generally poorly ventilated and oppressively hot. The smell gets into your clothes and your hair, but Dejo likes it. To him that's the aroma of hard work. That's how you fucking smell when you are doing what has to be done to feed your family. 2 lines of compressors, the engines that power the refrigerator and freezer cases upstairs, run down either side of this basement abyss. I point the flashlight to the barely visible dust-covered numbers above the compressors. There it is, number 19, Dejo says. There are decon trays everywhere. Decon is a powerful rat poison, rodents eat it, and it essentially burns away the interior of their stomachs and intestinal tracts, leaving a pretty disgusting disemboweled carcass. And directly under compressor number 19 was the top half of a rat that had clearly overindulged on DCON. Without a single moment of hesitation, Dejo bent down, grabbed the dead rat with his bare hand, and tossed it aside. 2 slaps of his hand on the side of his jeans, presumably to fully disinfect it, then he lay down, placing his head into the exact spot where the half-a rat had spent the last month of its life. Choking my lunch back down, I distinctly remember understanding that this act was for me, for my brother and sisters, for my family. But I also distinctly remember thinking that if the roles were reversed, my kids would not have eaten that night. I believe that the stress and uncertainty of Dejo's lifelong financial struggle was a major part of what kept him from being able to emotionally sustain a family. After you've just discarded a dead rat with your bare hand and laid your head down in the same space, you're not trying to hear shit from nobody about how hard their day was. Witnessing my parents' struggles branded me with the impression that financial stability was an imperative for love and family to have any chance whatsoever to thrive. I was on a tear, the biggest winning streak in Hollywood history. I was working 70 to 80 hours a week, holidays, weekends, even vacations became a time to advance. I noticed that most people came back from Christmas vacation heavier and out of shape. So, the holidays, for me, became an opportunity to extend my lead. I made it a point to come back every new year in better shape than I left the last. I would work out and sometimes even abstain from Christmas dinner as act of personal discipline. Darryl loved and praised my austerity. If you're not eating, then I'm not eating, he would say. I would spend the day studying and writing, reading a book, or rewriting a script, touching in and out of whatever holiday festivities others were enjoying. I decided to throw lavish Christmas and New Year's parties. It was a win-win-win. Jada and the kids would have all of their friends and cousins and family in town for a week of mountain fun. I would lure my business associates to beautiful ski destinations that I paid for. That meant they had an all-expenses-paid trip for themselves and their families. And I got to have my whole team in a remote location, a captive audience, for daily strategy meetings that helped me get a jump on the year and on my competition. I was killing it, I was winning at everything, and winning, to me, meant everything else in my life should be perfect and everyone around me should be happy. But it wasn't, and they weren't. Throughout our relationship, mornings had been Jada and my bonding, building, and connecting time. We would wake up before sunrise and talk for hours. We would share the dreams we'd had during the night, revelations, new ideas, we'd discuss the kids and any issues in our family. But these days, I could tell something was shifting. Jada was having almost daily crying spells. Now, in our mornings, she would wake up sobbing. During one stretch, she cried for 45 days straight. So, Will, to what do you attribute your meteoric success? Well, I consider myself to be fairly average in talent. Where I believe I excel is in my unflinching, unyielding discipline and work ethic. While the other guy is eating, I'm working. While the other guy is sleeping, I'm working. While the other guy is making love, well, I'm making love, too, but I'm working really hard at it. Reporters used to love that response, and while I was joking, the reality of the math was very simple to me. If I could wake up and start an hour earlier than everyone else, and stay an hour later than everyone else, and work through my lunch break, I would be gaining 15 extra hours every week on the competition. That works out to 780 more productive hours in a year than the next guy. That's the equivalent of 1 month. If you give me a 1-month head start on anybody, they'll never catch me. And if they need their weekends and vacations, so they can get their beauty rest and recover and maintain their little punkass work-life balance, then they will always be looking at my taillights. It was Christmas Eve. We had rented a house in Aspen, Colorado. The 2 weeks either side of Christmas were Jada's entire reason for enduring the rest of the year. She had 2 non-negotiable demands: the whole family had to be there for the whole 2 weeks, and it must be spent where there was snow. We would move around year to year, depending on the probability of frozen precipitation. There was no holiday, no celebration, no gathering or event that got anywhere near the emotional value Jada placed on family time at Christmas. Her Christmases as a child had been less than festive, to say the least. And she was going to make up for it with her own family. Note, Sherry has spent every Christmas with us for almost 2 decades. Quincy was right. Everyone had to wear the Christmas clothes that Jada picked out. One-piece pajamas with footies, ugly sweaters, reindeer ears, special one-horse open sleigh rides, singing Christmas carols. All mandatory. Black Santa Claus lamps in every bedroom, motion-activated Rudolph scaring the shit out of you when you just want a Christmas cookie in the middle of the night, and a 40-foot Christmas tree wedged in the corner of our living room looking like Shaq in a Prius. During the year, Jada was Peaches from a low-down dirty shame, a ghetto superstar, but at the first jingle of sleigh bells, she turned into a Midwestern, middle-aged white lady. This year, Jada decided that we were going to enjoy a family game of Monopoly. Just for a little context, I am a master Monopoly player. This is not a joke, I'm not saying it to be facetious, this is not hyperbole. I have studied, I have worked with professional instructors, I fully intended to play international Monopoly tournaments. When the dice hit, I don't have to count squares, I know that states is 6 squares to New York, I just pick the piece up and move it. I also know that if you land on go when you have a lot of property, you don't want to roll a 7 because you'll hit chance, and you always know the property assessment card is coming, and you hate that 9 from Kentucky because it throws you back to jail and you have to walk the gauntlet again without collecting your $200. We all sat down, and the game began. I found myself in the unenviable Monopoly position of being stuck with Boardwalk and Park Place. Amateurs think that Boardwalk and Park Place are prime real estate, what they don't realize is that they are actually priced out of the range of manageability. The property values increase as you move around the board from go. Boardwalk and Park Place are the most expensive to buy, and the most expensive to build. And, because there's only 2 of them, you lose a 40% probability of getting hit as other players move around the board. You invest all of this money, they take longer to build, so you're hitting other players' properties before yours are set up to be hit, and then people skate past them for the whole of the game. In a nutshell, Boardwalk and Park Place are sucker properties. They force you into a Hail Mary toward the end of the game, praying for a big hit. In this lamentable Monopoly purgatory is where I found myself this night. Willow was 7, she established the first Monopoly, Illinois, the red properties. I have Virginia and states, the purples, Boardwalk and Park Place, and 3 of the railroads. But I'm broke. Jaden is leery of my Monopoly skill set, so he's squeamish about doing deals with me. He's 9, and he's refusing every angle and offer I present him with to get St. Charles from him and complete my purple Monopoly. Jada has the Pacific line, that's the greens, but she doesn't have any cash to build, either, so she's no threat. Trey has Baltic and Mediterranean, that's the plum color right next to go, and the full Connecticut line, the baby blues. He has an entire block, he burned most of his cash to get it, but he's the gorilla on the board. Note, having an entire block or corner is the holy grail of Monopoly, you get hit every single time around the board and by every player. As the houses and hotels begin to come up on the board, the frailty of my Boardwalk and Park Place position is being exposed. The competitive noose is tightening around my neck, the Hail Mary is now or never. Jada lands on Pacific. Yes! I scream, clapping my hands, causing the motion-activated Rudolph to slowly turn and see what the noise was. Pacific is Jada's property, so no one can understand why that was such an exciting moment for me. To the untrained eye, she just landed on her own property. But they are novices, and I am a master. I think I may have also startled Jada with my elation. Why was that so exciting to you? She said. Well, you just landed on Pacific, I said joyfully. I was excited to explain my logic and usher them into my elevated sphere of Monopoly understanding. Pacific is 6 spaces from Park Place, and 8 from Boardwalk. Other than 7, 6 and 8 are statistically the most common numbers rolled on a pair of dice. 6 has 6 potential possibilities, 5, 1, 4, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 4, and 1, 5. As does 8, 6, 2, 5, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 5, and 2, 6. When you pick those dice up next time, there's a 13.89% probability that you'll throw a 6, same percentage for 8, which comes out to nearly 30% probability that when you throw those dice, you're going to get a 6 or an 8. And when you do, I'm going to have 3 houses on each, and you, young lady, are toast. You can't afford the hit. I busily set to mortgaging all of my other properties, $100 each for the railroads, $70 for states, $80 for Virginia, just enough to go from 2 houses to 3 on Boardwalk and Park Place, which in Monopoly is the exponential increase. When you go from 2 to 3, you maximize the return on investment. Are you sure you want to do that? Jada asks calmly. Hell yeah, I say, my eyes widening with anticipation. I hand Jaden, who is the banker, the $400 necessary to complete my Hail Mary transaction. You are definitely rolling a 6 or an 8. Jada remained steady, not breaking her gaze upon me. So, you are sure that you want to put your wife out of the family Monopoly game with your children on Christmas Eve? I finally turn and catch eyes with her. I was totally certain I wanted to do that before she put the emphasis on those key words, wife, family, children, and Christmas Eve, but now, I was down to mostly certain. If you can't stand the Monopoly heat, you gotta stay out the Monopoly kitchen, Jada, I said jokingly. Jada nods her head, slowly palming the dice, shakes them way too many times, clearly trying to give me a chance to change my mind. But I am dug in. She drops the dice into the center of the board. The mystical 13.89% probability becomes a 100% stone-cold actuality. 4, 2. Jada turns her property into the banker. Jaden kisses Willow, touches Trey's hair, and heads off to bed. Yes, dear reader, it's obvious today. But I was functioning at the time on a very different operating system. My mindset was, you fight how you train. I felt like Jada and my family needed me to think like that. They needed me to cultivate and maintain a winner's mind. They needed me to never detrain my warrior instincts. I am a black man in Hollywood. In order to sustain my position, I can't get caught slipping, not even once. I had to be perfect at all times. It took me years to realize that Jada wasn't actually playing Monopoly. She was bonding and connecting and enjoying family time. Apparently, I was the only person who was actually playing Monopoly. I have since upgraded my software and developed a new axiom: never get caught playing Monopoly. Dejo taught me how to play chess when I was 7 years old. In the summers, we would play almost every night. He would set the board up on the back porch and go back and forth between the game and the grill. He would play our next-door neighbor Mr. John sometimes. He played me no differently. Dejo didn't believe in taking it easy on kids. He thought that giving children false wins did a vile disservice to their growth and development, even to their ability to survive in the world. He smashed me game after game, month after month, checkmate after brutal checkmate, year after year, until I was 13 years old. I will never forget the moment. He had taught me the Gaucho piano opening. I had faithfully played that opening and response for years. But on my own, I started practicing the Ruy Lopez variation, and he was less familiar with that. The game moved calmly from the opening to the middle game. My position was strong. And Dejo knew it. No trips to the grill, no sips of his Chivas Regal. His Territon 100 burned untouched in his ashtray. Total silence. Total attention upon every move. Dejo's style was unrelenting attack. Put the pieces down their throat, ram them down their throat, he'd say, but not tonight. First, he pulled his bishop backward, and then scrambled his knight back to defend his king. It was my move. And I saw it. But he didn't. I was frozen. I sat over the board, my heart pounding, minutes burning away. I couldn't bring myself to make the fatal move. Shit, Daigyo says. He saw it. Daigyo looks directly into my eyes. He knows my hesitancy is not because I don't see it. He knows it's because I'm scared to make it. Go ahead, move it, he said. I picked up my knight, setting it gingerly into its final position. The felt on the bottom of the chess piece like a soft guillotine. What's that? He said. I couldn't even bring myself to say the final words. Check. I said. You know goddamn well that ain't no check. What is that? Checkmate? Why you putting a question on it? Say it. Checkmate. Yep, good game. Daigyo shook my hand, grabbed his cigarette and his drink, and went inside. We never played chess again. For years, I thought it was because he was a sore loser. But as I got to understand him better, I saw that he wanted my final memory of playing chess with my father to be perfect. He wanted my mind to be programmed to winning and to save a victory. His training of me on the chessboard was complete, it was a mythological rite of passage, and he didn't want to tarnish it. Nothing in our world is mine, Jada said. I didn't want to live like this. I wanted a small farm and a quiet life. I get that, I said, but we're here. So, how do we fix it? You can do anything, babe, so what do you want to do? Jada had loved metal music all through her teenage years. She has one of the most eclectic ears I've ever known. She'd always dreamed of having a band, but she caught me off guard when she announced she was putting together a heavy metal band. Jada is a brilliant poet and thinker. The depth of her lyrics has always captivated and moved me. I was trying to love and support her, so I was quietly going along with her journey, and then she handed me a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Jada had marked a story titled La Loba, the Wolf Woman. The sole work of La Loba is the collecting of bones. She collects and preserves especially that which is in danger of being lost to the world. When she has assembled an entire skeleton, she raises her arms over it, and sings out so deeply that the floor of the desert shakes, and as she sings, the wolf opens its eyes, leaps up, and runs away. The wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free toward the horizon. A dismantled skeleton that lies under the sand. It is our work to recover the parts, to look for the indestructible life force, the bones. It is a miracle story, a resurrection story. If we will sing the song, we can call up the psychic remains of the wild soul and sing her into vital shape again. To breathe soul over the thing that is ailing or in need of restoration by descending into the deepest mood of great love and feeling, then to speak one soul. This is singing over the bones. We cannot make the mistake of attempting to elicit this great feeling of love from a lover, for this woman's labor of finding and singing the creation hymn is a solitary work, a work carried out in the desert of the psyche. The idea that La Loba had to sing over the bones to resurrect the dead parts of herself was intensely resonant to me. If you kill one aspect of a woman, you kill the whole woman. La Loba gathers the dismantled skeleton of the shattered feminine and begins to sing it back to life. Jada had killed parts of herself to sustain our family. And her band, Wicked Wisdom, was how Jada would unleash La Loba to resurrect the whole of herself. But I was not ready for Ozfist. I can do that, Daddy. Jaden used to lay in bed with me when I would read screenplays, deciding which new world I would inhabit next. He loved to hear the stories as much as I loved to tell them to him. He'd stare and watch me as my mind danced, trying the characters on for size. You can do what, man? I said. I heard you on the phone with the man earlier. The man was Gabriele Muxino, an Italian director who had just been hired to make The Pursuit of Happiness. Gabriele didn't speak English, we needed a translator for our initial meeting. The leading directors in Hollywood were being considered for this film, but Gabriele was the top choice. Todd Black, a major Hollywood producer, had sent JL a 2020th piece about a guy named Chris Gardner. Chris had gone from homeless and living with his young son on the streets of San Francisco to becoming a successful stockbroker. The screenplay was stunning, it was a perfect hero's journey. We had our choice of the top of directors, but I loved El Ultimo Bacio by a director named Gabriel Muxino, so I asked JL to set up a meeting. I was pretty sure that he wouldn't ultimately direct the film, but I had long ago learned the power and importance of exploration. General meetings with world-class artists had become standard operating procedure. The meeting was awful. Gabriel didn't want to use the translator. He was trying to speak English, but he didn't speak English. JL and I didn't even try to speak Italian, because we don't speak Italian. But Gabriel's artistic passion culminated in two game-changing moves. One, he gave us an Italian film, Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves, which won the Academy Award for Most Outstanding Foreign Language Film in 1950, and through the translator, said, "This is the movie I want to make." And then, he got me. He said, "If you don't choose me to direct this film, please don't choose an American filmmaker, because Americans don't understand the beauty of the American dream." Gabriel was in. "So what makes you think you can do this, man?" I said to Jaden. Jaden was 6 years old at the time, and other than elaborate home movies, he'd never shown any interest in the business. "The man keeps saying to you that he can't find a little boy to play your son." "That's because I'm your son, Daddy." "Well, that's true, man," I said, laughing. "But this would be acting, pretending. Pretending to be your son, though, Daddy." "Duh. I be your son every day." Gabriel Muxino had been struggling to cast the perfect actor to play my son. He had seen nearly 500 kids. Gabriel is an instinctual, intuitive artist. Things have to feel right for him. Jada and I decided that we would let Jaden audition. "Grazy, Grazy, Grazy!" Gabriel exclaimed. "I wanted Jaden for this role from the first moment I met him, but the studio forbade me from asking you." "What? Why?" "The studio felt like it was a death sentence for the film from a marketing standpoint. They felt that people wouldn't be able to suspend disbelief seeing Jaden and you on camera as father and son. The studio also felt that it would seem like nepotism, and just put us in the hole from the first announcement." At Gabriel's pleading, they agreed to allow him to put Jaden and me on camera as a chemistry test. It was such a touchy subject at the studio that Jada and I removed ourselves from the decision-making process. We allowed Gabriel to run with his vision and cast whoever he wanted. Because we were producers, and I was starring, there were conflicts of interest everywhere we looked. So Jada and I agreed that we would not speak on the subject, we would be parents only. Jaden ultimately was asked to audition an unprecedented 9 separate times. The studio simply didn't want the problems that came along with casting him. But audition after audition, in all of his innocent, 6-year-old glory, he proved himself the right actor for the role. After his 9th audition, though, the studio requested a 10th. Jada had had enough. She informed Gabriel and the studio that Jaden was no longer available for the role. At which point, Gabriel, the bleeding, passionate artist that he is, decided that he was emotionally incapable of making the film without Jaden. The studio relented and offered Jaden the role of Christopher Jr. in The Pursuit of Happiness. For me, this was perfection, on the set, at work, with my son. That was how I wanted to parent, on the battlefield of life, real stakes, real outcomes, real hunting. I could correct errors in real time, and I could teach in real-life scenarios. This is how I define parental love. Ozfest is a traveling heavy metal festival. Established by Ozzy Osbourne and his wife, Sharon, it began in 1996 and featured all the metals: thrash, industrial, hardcore punk, deathcore, metalcore, post-hardcore, alternative, death, gothic, and NU. Sharon had seen Jada's band and some part of her understood. She and Jada became friends, and Sharon put Wicked Wisdom on Ozfest in summer 2005. Ozfest is the least African-American event outside of that broom and big-ass hockey puck thing they do at the Winter Olympics. "Babe, are you sure you don't want to do some R&B?" I asked softly, but I meant it hard. "This is the music I feel," Jada said softly, but she meant it hard. So we packed up our children and headed down the black brick road to the land of Oz. I had never seen this side of Jada. La Loba was raging. Ozfest is a purist audience, and what began as skepticism and dismissal with every show was transformed first into silence, and ultimately into respect. Jada's creative energies were being revived. She was coming up with ideas for TV shows and movies she wanted to write and direct. She was filling journals with poetry and artwork. It was breathtaking to see the bones struggling to reanimate. With every spit, curse, and growl, Jada seemed to come alive. Jada and I had agreed early in our marriage that we would never work at the same time. One of us would always have to be available full-time to the children. The Pursuit of Happiness was slated to begin principal photography in fall 2005. Jada's appearance at Ozfest was so successful that Guns N' Roses asked her to open for them on their upcoming tour. But the tour was set smack dab, dead center in the middle of Pursuit. At the time, I felt like Jada had options. We had Mom and Gammy, and I was going to be there every step of the way. Jaden and I would be sharing a trailer, all his scenes were with me. In retrospect, I can see the truth. Jada was faced with a horrific reality, and there was no version of her leaving her 6-year-old son without his mother on his first movie gig. Jada turned down Guns N' Roses. The Pursuit of Happiness came out in 2006 and was a critical success and box office smash, and garnered my second Academy Award nomination. If I felt invincible before, now I really felt it. I just made a movie about a homeless black guy who gets a job in the 80s, and still crushed every other movie at the box office that season. I couldn't miss. The streak continued. I Am Legend roared out the first weekend with the largest ever box office gross for a movie in December. It was a movie that featured me, on screen alone, with a dog, and it grossed around $600 million. Then Hancock, written by Vince Gilligan of Breaking Bad fame, about an alcoholic superhero, came out and grossed another $600 million plus within 6 months of I Am Legend. I was unstoppable. It was the greatest streak of smash hits of any movie actor in Hollywood history. I became the highest-grossing film actor ever. And I still wasn't even 40 years old. The problem was, I'd conflated being successful with being loved and being happy. These are 3 separate things. And since I'd conflated them, I ended up suffering from an even more insidious version of the subtle sickness, which I can best describe as more. If I am more successful, I'll be happier, and people will love me more. I was trying to fill an internal emotional hole with external, material achievements. Ultimately, this kind of obsession is insatiable. The more you get, the more you want, all the time never quite scratching the itch. You end up with a mind consumed by what it doesn't have and what it didn't get, and in a spiraling inability to enjoy what it has. I Am Legend had opened to the biggest December opening ever. When JL called to give me the weekend grosses, he was uncharacteristically ecstatic. The 3-day was $77,211,321 in 3,600 theaters. That's over $21,000 per venue. Nobody's ever done that, ever. I was quiet for a moment and then I recognized a subtle dissatisfaction. Why do you think we missed 80? I asked. What? JL said. I'm saying, do you think it was the ending? I feel like if we had made the adjustment to the final moment, if we could have made it feel more like Gladiator at the end. Are you fucking serious right now? JL said. It's the biggest opening ever. Ever. I get that, Jay, I'm just asking you a question, I said. This is the only time that James Lasseter has ever hung up on me. Ever. I am sitting with Wayne Gretzky and Joe Montana. Their sons, Trevor and Nick, respectively, are on the field with Trey. And over the loudspeaker the game announcer shouts, Montana, deep to Smith touchdown. Trey is a wide receiver on the #1 high school football team in Southern California, Oaks Christian. And the son of football legend Joe Montana just threw a touchdown pass to my firstborn. If my life were a movie, I would have looked directly into the camera, broken the fourth wall, and said, who wrote this bullshit? So let me get this straight, you want us to believe that my character grew up bagging ice in West Philly, wins the first Grammy ever given to a rapper, becomes a TV star, then the biggest movie star in the world, breaking box office records every time he releases a damn movie, marries a beautiful actress, artist, performer, and poet, has 3 spectacular children, and the greatest hockey player in the history of the sport, Wayne Gretzky, just patted him on the back because his son just caught a touchdown pass from the son of the greatest quarterback in the history of that sport, Joe Montana? That's unrealistic. I'm not filming a word of that bullshit. Get me Aaron Sorkin on the phone. We gotta rewrite this crap immediately. And somebody see if Robert Downey Jr. is available. I'm not sure if it's because of my lack of athletic fulfillment in my youth, or the magical energies of the Friday Night Lights, or the surprising development of Trey's physical abilities and talents, but there was nothing in life that I enjoyed more than watching that kid play football. Trey was being courted by the top college scouts. Wayne and Joe were guiding me through the process. As our children were getting older, it seemed like Jada and I used to play a man-to-man defense, but now we were having to switch to a zone. Every kid had something important happening all the time. Just as Trey was preparing for his senior year football season, Jaden was approved by the studio to star in The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan. The family was ecstatic. Then we realized, shooting would mean 3 months in Beijing. Trey's games were in Southern California. We all agreed that this was an opportunity that Jaden couldn't pass up. We as a family would support him. But the previous year, every family member had been at every single one of Trey's games. And the thought of Trey playing without his family in the stands was unacceptable. During this time, it was becoming clear that the likelihood of Wicked Wisdom returning to the stage was dwindling with every moment of Smith Family Perfection trademark symbol. But in my mind, there was still a solution for every problem. We would have to grind, we would have to sacrifice, we would all have to suffer a little bit, but I had the vision, and if everybody followed my lead, we would continue to win, and we would all be happy. We were even winning in the stands. I had Jada to my right, and Sherry to my left. We were the picture of the perfect blended family. Nobody could do what we were doing. Not even us. My way of problem solving was to prioritize. I would decide which problems on the list were most pressing and focus on those, but what I missed was that everybody's list was different. Jada, Willow, Jaden, and I left for Beijing in June 2009. Trey went back to school that September. All 10 of Trey's football games would fall during principal photography of The Karate Kid. And then the grace of God revealed itself in the form of the international date line. Beijing to Los Angeles is a 12-hour flight. A 10 p.m. flight out of Beijing on Friday crossed the date line, landing in Los Angeles at 10 Friday morning, just in time to get to the house, get some rest, and make it to Trey's game at 6 Friday night. A 4 p.m. flight on Saturday going the other way arrives at 4 a.m. Monday morning, just in time to get back to work. Jaden and I commuted 10 straight weeks, Beijing to Los Angeles and back, never missing a single one of Trey's games. I was loving life. I felt like a master. Oprah Winfrey asked us to come on her show, me, Jada, Trey, Jaden, and Willow, even Sherry and her husband, Tell. An entire episode dedicated to the Smith Family Perfection trademark symbol. I was the biggest movie star in the world. Karate Kid, Jaden's first feature with him as the star, was about to be the #1 movie in the world. The first season of Jada's new show Hawthorne had premiered, with her as the lead role. Willow had just signed to Roc Nation to record her first album. Trey was the star of his high school football team. And to top it all off, here was my ex-wife, talking about how much her and Jada collaborate to raise the kids. I finally had it, my own version of Dallas. The picture was complete, and it was perfect. I had built a family empire. This was beyond anything I'd ever dreamed. I feel like J.R. Ewing, I said to Jada jokingly. She said, you know J.R. got shot, right? 18. Mutiny. Hop up out the bed, turn my swag on, pay no attention to them haters because we whip 'em off. Whip My Hair was a platinum, global hit record. Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder were the only artists in history to have a higher-ranking single at a younger age than Willow Smith. The record was released 2 weeks before her 10th birthday. Little girls around the world were whipping their hair, the iron was hot, and it was time to strike. Jada and I never pressured the kids into show business. It was true that fame and fortune made Jada uncomfortable. She felt ambivalent about her kids being celebrities. But part of my vision for her lake was that it would be a creative campus, an artist's haven. I wanted to shorten the distance between anyone having an idea and being able to create art. I built a music studio, there were video cameras and editing bays, there were sketch pads in every room, painting supplies and pencils everywhere, and eventually, even our living room became the studio for Jada's Red Table Talk. The fact is, the kids simply grew up in it, so there was nothing to pressure. I grew up working in Dajo's shop. It struck me as normal that kids do what their parents do. My father sold ice, so I bagged it. Similarly, for Trey, Jaden, and Willow, there was nothing unusual about being on a film set or in a recording studio. It's the family business, it was their normal experience. So no, I did not push my kids into show business because I was an insane, overbearing father. It was only after they decided to be in show business that I became an insane, overbearing father. In the case of Willow, when she was about 8 years old, she got really into singing. This is not unusual for an 8-year-old girl. 8-year-old girls all over the world love to sing and dream about singing on stage. The only difference was that most dads would put her in the church choir, or maybe sign her up for a voice lesson or two. I'm not that kind of dad. My mindset at the time was that there is no reason to do anything unless you are prepared to take a shot at being the best on earth. My belief was, you should always be aiming at the pinnacle, always striving for the very top of the mountain. Nothing should be done half-heartedly. Willow landed a 30-day European tour opening for Justin Bieber. This was a huge moment for our family. The baby was now throwing her hair, into the ring. The frenzy around Whip My Hair was madness. Television appearances, magazine covers, red carpets, orange carpets, photo shoots, she was on Jimmy Fallon, Ellen, blanket coverage across Europe. The entire family flew for Willow's sold-out opening night at the Birmingham National Indoor Arena in the British Midlands. She absolutely smashed. Next up was Dublin, Ireland. Same deal. Same set. Once again, she slayed. Another sold-out arena, a synchronized tsunami of ginger tresses, never before and never since has that much hair been whipped in the Republic of Ireland. The tour continued, night after night I watched her grow. Her voice was getting stronger, her stage presence coming alive, she started to learn how to work a crowd, she was able to pop in and out of dance sequences. I felt like a genius. Jada had flown back to LA, so I was on daddy duty. On the last night of the tour, Willow comes off stage, in full post-performance bliss, and jumps into my arms. "Baby, you ripped," I said. "Thank you, Daddy." She squealed. "Was it fun?" "Yes, Daddy, I saw all the little girls in the front and all the way to the top. They knew all the words." "Yes, they did, that's crazy, right?" I said, remembering the feeling in Detroit when the crowd sang Parents back to me. "All right. We're going to go home for a couple of days, then we're gonna start the album. And Justin's team loves what you're doing so much that they want you to do the same thing in Australia." "I'm finished, Daddy." She gushed, with so much glee that I almost missed what she'd said. "What you say, Bean?" I said, "I'm finished, Daddy, I'm ready to go home." "Well, yeah, you're finished for a few days, sweetie, but really you just started. You have a few more weeks to go," I said in the standard parental not taking my kid seriously tone. No, Daddy, I'm finished." "Yes, for this part, Bean, you made a promise to Mr. Jay-Z that you would do the whole album and more videos." "No, Daddy, you made a promise to Mr. Jay-Z," she said, smiling that she scored a point off her daddy. "Honey, we promised together. And when you start something, you have to finish it. It doesn't matter to you that I'm done, Daddy?" Willow said. "Well, of course it matters, baby, but you can't be done." "Why, Daddy?" "I had fun, and I'm finished." "I get that, but you can't be finished until you complete what you promised to do." This was such a foreign idea to her. She stared at me with no malice, no anger, just a delicate confusion. And then she relented. "Okay, Daddy." We flew home. The Smith family European conquest had been a mega success. I set out busily organizing the next phase, world domination. One morning at her lake, I had just finished a call with Jay-Z when Willow came skipping into the kitchen for breakfast. "Good morning, Daddy," Willow said joyfully, as she bounced to the refrigerator. My jaw nearly dislocated, dislodged, and shattered on the kitchen floor. My world-dominating, hair-whipping, future global superstar was totally bald. During the night, Willow had shaved her entire head. My mind raced and scrambled. How was she going to whip her hair if she didn't have any? Who the hell wants to pay to watch some kid whip their head back and forth? But before I could respond, I felt something slowly turning, shifting, until it clicked into place. In a moment of divine connection and revelation, she had reached me. I wasn't angry, I was shaken, the feeling you would have if you were absent-mindedly looking at your cell phone and you stepped off the sidewalk into the path of an oncoming bus and at the last second someone snatched you back to safety. Willow was my little catcher in the rye. I leaned down, peered deeply into her eyes, and said, "I got it. I am so sorry. I see you." As strange as this may sound, in that moment I discovered feelings. "It doesn't matter to you that I'm done, Daddy?" I know it sounds crazy, but Willow's question put a Liberty Bell-sized crack in my worldview. It was just an innocent question from a daughter to her father, but somehow, I knew that it was more than that. What she was really asking me was, "Don't you care how I feel?" It was the deepest, existential human question. It may be the most important question that we as humans ever ask each other. Does it matter to you how I feel? Even though she was only 10 years old, and my choice to abandon the conquest had sufficiently answered her question in the affirmative, I asked myself, what is my honest answer? I took a deep, hard, self-reflective look at my belief systems around feelings. And my truth startled me. I would have never said this out loud, but a truthful answer to, "Does it matter to you how I feel?" would have sounded something like this: "Not exactly, sweetheart, feelings are 7th on my list. Food. Shelter. Security. Intelligence. Strength. Productivity. First and foremost, I care that you eat every day. Second, I care that you have somewhere to live. Third, I care that you're safe. Fourth, I care that you are intelligent, and your mind is trained to solve the problems of your life. Fifth, I care that you're strong, because the world is hard. And sixth, I care that you're productive. I want you to contribute to the human family. And I believe that if you have all of those things, they will add up to you feeling great. I believe that if I take care of 1 through 6, number 7 will take care of itself. This is not something I just apply to you. I don't even care how I feel. Many of my feelings have been enemies to my dreams and to our prosperity. I don't feel like running 5 miles at 5 a.m. I don't feel like working 80 hours a week. I don't feel like getting booed on stage, and feces thrown, and M80s hurled at my head. And I know that if I worry about how I feel, I won't be able to feed, clothe, house, and protect my family. When I determine a right action for our survival and prosperity, it doesn't matter to me that I don't feel like doing it. If it's obviously an action of supreme benefit, then to hell with my feelings. When people are too worried about how they feel, they'll never feel how they want to feel. Note, to any of my horrified readers, I don't care how you feel. Just kidding, folks. That was a joke. Here's the thing, I watched my father's negative emotions seize control of his ample intellect and cause him over and over again to destroy beautiful parts of our family. I also sat in church one time when Miss Mamie caught the Holy Ghost, and she was so overwhelmed by positive emotion that she leaped from the pew in joyful ecstasy and swung her left hand so wildly that she damn near broke my nose. And didn't even notice. While my feelings about feelings have evolved and elevated, I still struggle to this day when extreme emotion arises in myself or others. Feelings are extremely valuable tools for maneuvering and manifesting in the world. They are like fire, they can be used to cook and heat and cleanse. But when extreme emotions go unchecked, my experience has been that they will incinerate your dreams. Unfortunately, at the time, I was neither wise enough nor articulate enough to prevent the many gruesome wildfires that were about to consume my life. Willow's act of protest kicked off a period in our family that I refer to as the mutiny. The pressure had been building for years. I was trying to head it off, but it was all about to unravel. We were sitting in the kitchen. Me, Jada, Willow. Willow was eating dulce de leche ice cream, her left hand playing with my beard, a spoonful of Haagen-Dazs in her right. She said it so sweetly, but sometimes from the mouths of babes. Mommy? Yes, sweetie? It's so sad, Willow said. What is, honey? Daddy has a picture of a family in his mind. And it's not us. I was at the top of the mountain. I was living beyond everything I had ever dreamed. Every goal had been attained, every obstacle conquered. And then some. Yet, everybody around me was miserable. Daddy has a picture of a family in his mind. And it's not us. Willow looked me in the eye with so much compassion. She genuinely felt bad for me, dulce de leche dripping down her arm. Jada mercifully looked away, pretending she'd seen something of critical importance in the lower freezer. Willow just kept rubbing my face. It's okay, Daddy. You'll be okay. To this day, dulce de leche ice cream is forbidden in my house. I started noticing feelings everywhere. I'd be sitting in a business meeting, and someone would say, it's nothing personal, it's just business. And I realized, oh, shit, there's no such thing as just business, everything is personal. People get furious, excited, frustrated, hopeful, hopeless, disappointed, fearful, embarrassed, all in the confines of business meetings. Everybody is caught up in their feelings, making all their decisions all the time based only on how they feel. Even my aversion to extreme feelings is based on how I feel about feelings. I felt like Christopher Columbus, who had discovered this new place where people was already at, sorry about that preposition, mom. All of politics, all of religion, all of sports, culture, marketing, eating, shopping, sex, everything is centered on how people feel. Then the truth hit me like a 90 miles per hour fastball, nobody gives a shit about anything except how they feel. Feeling good is the most important thing to everyone, everywhere, at all times. We are choosing our words, actions, and behaviors in order to achieve a feeling that we deem positive. There's nothing more important than feeling how we want to feel. And people determine whether or not you love them by how well they feel you honor their feelings. This has been a precarious conundrum in most of my adult relationships. I have always been less concerned about someone's immediate feelings than I have been about their overall well-being. People in my life have consistently complained about feeling unconsidered by me, and when left unaddressed, this has sometimes festered into their feeling unloved. I would walk through fire for the people I love. I am fully prepared to die for my family. But no, I haven't always focused on their feelings. I don't trust feelings, feelings come and go and change like the weather. You can't plan anything around them. And just because somebody feels something, doesn't make it true. Just because your feelings are extreme, doesn't mean that you're right. In fact, the more extreme your feelings are, the more likely it is that they are skewed. People care less about facts, truth, probabilities, or intentions than they do about how they feel and how well you have displayed that you care about those feelings. So, when we open sentences with "the fact of the matter is, the other person is thinking, I just talked for 10 minutes, I told you what my fact of the matter is." Or if we say, "Look, here's the reality, the other person is thinking, asshole, I just told the reality." Other classic offenders include "truth be told," and "at the end of the day," and "I get it, but in all likelihood," and "I get it, but here's the thing," and "can I be honest?" Use any of those, and you're dead in the water. People take it as a total negation of what they just said and a complete disregard of their feelings. Nobody cares what you think and what you feel. They care what they think and what they feel. That's why they said it. There are other inherent questions attached to "does it matter to you how I feel?" If the answer is yes, then the next unspoken question is "how much?" And then, what behavior alterations are you willing to make to show me how much? And what parts of your personal agenda are you willing to let go of in order to apply that energy to my agenda? Are you willing to put your thoughts and feelings aside in order to care for mine? In essence, people want you to behave differently so they can feel better. How much you're willing to change will prove to them how much you love them. Trey was 20 years old, Jaden was 14, Willow was 12. I began to experiment with my parenting by reassessing my relationships with my children in terms of my care and concern for their feelings. I was a master provider and protector. I was a world-class teacher. But I began to be able to perceive the subtle, and not so subtle, emotional injuries of their childhoods. The one consolation I afforded myself was that at least I saw I was getting better. Trey had gotten the most ignorant version of my parenting. Jaden got Will Dad 2.0, which was a slight upgrade, and even though Willow had had to shave her head, she had stopped me before her point of no return. At 11 years old, Willow, for all intents and purposes, retired from the entertainment industry. I knew a part of it was the intrinsic pressure of the business, but I also knew a bigger part of it was that she had felt unprotected. She couldn't articulate it, but it was clear that she didn't want any part of anything that took my focus off her heart. Feel my family turning away from me, questioning my leadership and even my love. Trey asked me at dinner one night, "Dad, what do you worship?" Sherry had recently rediscovered the church. She'd found comfort and transformation in Christ. It was beautiful to watch, and it was real. And while I was happy that she had kindled a new faith and direction, I deeply resented that she began questioning and judging my choices and my decisions in my life. In the Black community, when someone discovers faith as an adult and begins to point out your transgressions and detail your only path to salvation, we call that holy rolling. And there are very few things more incensing than one of your ex-sin partners pointing out your current sins. I loved how Trey took to the Bible. He has one of the purest hearts of any human I have ever met. I was excited to discuss Abraham and Isaac and to debate the righteousness of David and what the story of Lazarus really meant. I was wide open to ponder the life of Christ in the spiritual context, and the historical, even the mythological if his mind could handle it. What I was neither prepared nor willing to do was to debate the scriptural inadequacies of my life decisions. I worship God, I said. Are you sure? So, here's the deal. Your Bible is brand new, with pages you haven't even looked at yet. Mine is tattered and worn, with no page unturned. So why don't you rough your Bible up a little bit, then we can have this conversation in a few years? I had brushed off his question, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I do interviews for a living, 35 years of questions in 50-something languages. And the number one greatest question that I have ever been asked is, what do you worship? And the second greatest question is, are you sure? I decided we needed a family project. We tended to rally around one another when one of us had a significant endeavor. Trey playing football, Willow with her music, Jaden during Karate Kid, Jada or myself on a film set. There was something galvanizing when we worked together. After Earth became the project that was going to rejuvenate and reconnect us. I had seen a TV show called I Shouldn't Be Alive. It featured different stories about harrowing, life-threatening ordeals and jaw-dropping brushes with death. One of the stories was about a father and son who had become stranded in the wilderness, miles and miles from civilization. The father was injured in an accident, and the teenage son had to travel alone through dangerous terrain to find help and save his dad. As I watched, I kept imagining myself injured and helpless and Jaden climbing through the wilderness, trying to get to civilization to save me. The scenario stuck in my mind, a coming-of-age story about a young man trying to save his father. The idea morphed into a movie. It would also be about a father learning to trust and depend on his son. It would be a metaphor, a means to healing their relationship. At the time, I was also experimenting with migrating story through time and setting. Can you take a 1940s Berlin nightclub, with all of the core human themes and conflicts, and set it 1200 years in the future and maintain the fundamental human truths? I sent the episode of I Shouldn't Be Alive to M. Night Shyamalan. He felt great about the episode and thought there was a movie in it. When Night felt the idea, I took it as providence. Night had vowed to shoot the interiors of his films in only one city, Philadelphia. Night lived just outside Philly. I had never worked on a film in my hometown. My immediate family and my extended family would be together for 3 whole months. My foot was on the gas. I had also just agreed to mentor Jada's brother, Khalid Pinkett, in the process of script development. He is a world-class history buff, and historians tend to have profound insight into character and story. He was a perfect pupil, and he was my brother-in-law. Family, family, family. JL hated the idea. JL hated the treatment. JL hated the timing. JL hated everything about it. It's just a concept, JL said. Finish the script. Complete the story. Let's not pull the trigger until we know what we're pulling the trigger on. But I wasn't hearing it. I needed this to save my family. And then there was the secret vow, my hidden agenda. I was going to make sure that Jaden felt loved, protected, and cared for, every step through the process. He was going to know, unequivocally, that his father cares about his feelings. After Earth was set 1 millennium in the future, after humankind had rendered the planet uninhabitable, father and son crash land in the most dangerous place in the universe, Earth. The interiors of the film had been shot in Philly, and the exteriors would be captured in Moab, Utah, and Costa Rica. Jaden's character, Kitai, would have to make his way through jungles, rivers, plains, canyons, and volcanic streams in order to save his injured father. I was determined to create a joyful and loving environment for Jaden on set. Costa Rica was hot, slangily and temperature-wise. I had giant, air-conditioned tents set up at every location so Jaden could chill between shots, ping-pong tables, food, music, somewhere he could take a nap. What the fuck is this tent shit? Daryl said, pulling me to the side. It's hot, D, I just want him to be comfortable. Comfortable? You gonna make this little nigger soft? Your character is the top general in the universe. How he supposed to save your ass coming out of a fucking tent? Let his ass wait in the sun like everybody else. Daryl had been my mentor, my coach, and confidant for a decade now. He had prodded and pounded and propelled me into my wildest dreams. He knew how to build winners, he had been there with Sugar Ray versus Marvin Hagler, he knew how to design soldiers. I'm not sure why I didn't just tell him what I was going through and what I was doing. I was probably embarrassed, or maybe I just concluded that he wouldn't understand. But Daryl saw my actions as a form of sabotage. I was breaking all the rules that had defined our successful conquest. This drove a wedge between us that eventually grew into a chasm and ultimately estrangement. We stopped working together. At the time, I couldn't muster the courage to communicate with him directly. Our decade-long, hyper-successful partnership just ended without even a conversation. Daryl would later confide, "You broke my heart, and you never even told me why." In terms of my relationship with Jaden, the filming was perfection. When I would come on set on The Karate Kid, Jaden would deflate and lose his energy. It was as if the enemy had arrived. I was the person who was going to push him, to make him do another take, to extend the movie shoot another month in China because I wasn't happy with a scene. But on After Earth, I didn't allow production to go 1 minute beyond his allotted shooting schedule. I was his protector. One day on set, in what was my highest parenting moment with Jaden, he was shooting an action sequence on one sound stage, and I was producing a shot on another. I wasn't onstage with him, but I had a monitor where I could see everything he was doing. One of the coordinators was asking him to do a move that Jaden was uncomfortable with. He tried a few times to explain that he didn't want to do it, but the man wasn't taking no for an answer. I could see on the monitor that they were in dispute, so I turned on the sound. "That doesn't seem realistic to me," Jaden said respectfully. "Well, let's just get a few takes," the coordinator insisted. And then, the individual greatest words I've ever heard from Jaden's mouth, "Can someone go get my dad, please?" It makes me teary every time I think about it. I had transformed our relationship, I had purified his perception of me, I was no longer the ogre who was going to push and punish him. I was the person he called for in his time of need. I can still see him standing there, confident. It was as if he knew he had a lion that would protect him. He didn't want to sick it on anybody, but he knew he could if he had to. When I grew up, I knew I had a lion, but I hated that sometimes he'd bite me. The shooting of After Earth was a magical bonding experience for Jaden and me. He was fresh into his teens, the mythological timing was perfect. I had succeeded in illustrating the depth of my care and concern. But in my preoccupation with his well-being, I had diverted my usual hyper-intensive focus away from the storytelling, the screenplay, and the overall sculpting of the film. As a result, our father and son honeymoon was short-lived. After Earth was an abysmal box office and critical failure. And what was worse was that Jayden took the hit. Fans and the press were absolutely vicious. They said and printed things about Jayden that I refused to repeat. Jayden had faithfully done everything that I'd instructed him to do, and I had coached him into the worst public mauling he'd ever experienced. We never discussed it, but I sense he felt betrayed, misled, and he lost his trust in my leadership. Jayden likes to win, and he doesn't mind a little suffering to secure a victory. This is also an inherent parenting problem. There is no one-size-fits-all. They all need different things. I've read enough to know that a critical stage of a boy becoming a man is the moment of individuation from his father, that instant when you realize your father is not Superman. He's a flawed human. That moment when you make the scary decision to separate from him and live and die by your own hand. Just like Dajo on the chessboard, as a father it's what you hope for. But at 15 years old, when Jayden asked about being an emancipated minor, my heart shattered. He ultimately decided against it, but it sucks when you hurt your kids. Back then, I made the troubling conclusion that questing with empathy was an oxymoron, and you could either worry about how people feel, or you could win. But you had to pick one. On the night of Jada's 37th birthday, I had a vision. I saw her 40th birthday party. It was huge, it was wild. It would be the Taj Mahal of birthday parties. Something she would never forget, a public display of my love and affection that would fix everything. I planned it for 3 years. I love planning events, orchestrating spectacle and emotion. In my mind, the sum total of a happy life is the quality of your memories, so I'm always looking for the most vivid memory that I can create. Growing up, Jada had been close to her grandmother who had passed a few years earlier. Secretly, I contacted Jada's Aunt Karen, who was the default family archivist. Karen had pictures, videos, and letters from Jada's grandmother, and she had recently discovered microcassettes on which Jada's grandmother had recorded her thoughts during the final weeks of her life. No one in the family had heard the tapes. They would be the centerpiece of my birthday presentation to Jada. The vision was ablaze. I would do a documentary short film about Jada's life. I hired a production team to research her family's genealogy, tracking her grandmother's lineage all the way back to slavery. Then I hired a director to compile the information and make the film. But the film, by itself, wouldn't be Taj Mahal enough. Jada loved Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the art scene there. It would be a surprise 3-day birthday weekend. I shut down an entire hotel in the city, invited dozens of our closest friends and family. We'd have gourmet dinners each night under the stars, followed by a surprise event. Friday night would be a private art show, Saturday morning would be a spiritual pilgrimage, a hike to Picacho Peak. I got Jada's favorite painters to come and do custom paintings and family classes. Mary J. Blige loved Jada and agreed to give a surprise performance on Saturday night. And the crown of the weekend would be the unveiling of the documentary about her life. This was going to be my big triumph, how I would win my way back into my wife's heart. That first evening was blissful, an intimate candlelit dinner on an outdoor rustic terrace. There were maybe 20 of us. I wanted it to be small enough for Jada but big enough for me. A cellist played as we dined, the mood was calm and loving. Everyone recounted their favorite Jada stories. Everything went perfectly. Friday night set the stage, now Saturday was gonna bring the house down. Saturday morning the rest of the guests arrived. I had multiple activities planned, golf, hiking, brunch, spa treatments. I wanted everybody to have the freedom to move around as they pleased until the sun set, then it was my time to shine. Dinner was at 6 p.m. There were 40 of us now. The dinner went off without a hitch. Everyone remarked on how beautiful the decor was, how delicious the food had been. I even overheard some of the women teasing their husbands. When I turn 40, you better plan me a will party. Well, you blew my 40th, but if I decide to stay with you, you make sure my 50th is like this. I wonder if Will and Jada need a wife. I was the perfect husband. And they didn't even realize I was just getting started. The dinner had been more than anyone could have asked for, an exquisite show of love that Emperor Shah Jahan himself would have approved of. And just before dessert, I gently began tapping my spoon on my wine glass. I had seen that in movies, but I'd never done it in real life. It works. Well, first I would like to thank you all for coming to celebrate 40 years of Jada. If you will now all follow me, we will be having our dessert in the garden. I ceremoniously led the way. A 20-yard-long flowered archway had been hidden from view for the entire dinner. The reveal drew oohs and ahs from the crowd. The inside of the archway was lined with photos of Jada, a gallery in celebration of her power, her beauty, and her contribution to all of our lives, perfect lighting illuminating not only the pictures but also the quality and the abundance of my love. The far end of the archway spilled into an open-air theater. Again, the crowd reacts in awe. Jada seemed to be enjoying herself, but she was quiet. I couldn't get a good read. But it didn't matter because I knew the documentary would be a hands-down grand slam emotional home run. I escorted Jada to her front row seat. Gammy hadn't seen or heard any of this footage of her mother, either, so I sat her right next to Jada. The rest of the guests scrambled to get the best possible seats. They could feel something special was about to happen. I had traced Jada's family lineage back to slavery. I had found pictures and stories of Union Army war heroes, Black Wall Street business people, enslaved people, doctors, artists, all of whom had been her ancestors. I had secretly flown with Jaden to the church in Jamaica where her great-grandparents had met and married. The comedic high point of the film was a meeting between me, Jaden, Jada's brother, Khalib, and a descendant of the family who had owned Jada's family during slavery. So, imagine you're a sweet 67-year-old accountant from a tiny suburb outside Cleveland, Ohio. It's a normal Wednesday in your normal life, you're watching a little Jeopardy! With your loving wife. You've just complimented her on her pot roast, there's a knock at the door, and there stands Will Smith and the Karate Kid. And the Karate Kid's uncle. And a camera crew. The man and his wife were great sports. He just so happened to be his family's historian, he knew the stories and the names and the people we were talking about. He showed us pictures and paraphernalia, and we ultimately got him to formally apologize on camera. "Happy birthday, Jada," he said. "Sorry for the misunderstanding." The audience was roaring. People could not believe the lengths I'd gone to. I heard folks saying, "Will is a damn fool, and I've never seen anything like this. And what the hell is he going to do next year?" I still wasn't finished. The room goes silent as Jada's beloved grandmother begins to speak. The recordings had been directed to specific family members, many of whom were in the crowd. For the first time since her passing, Jada was hearing the voice of her grandmother speaking directly to her. I had seen the video 100 times at this point, so I was only watching Jada. The entire place is in tears, her family, my family, everybody. All except Jada. She sat motionless, refusing to make eye contact with me. The video ends, family and friends erupt in a standing ovation. Then, the screen rises, revealing Mary J. Blige. We went back to the hotel room. Jada still hadn't said anything, not a "thank you," not an "I loved it." Nothing. She took a shower. I was sitting there, waiting. After about 30 minutes, Jada emerged from the bathroom. "I don't want to do anything tomorrow," she said. "So you can cancel whatever you had planned." I was dumbfounded. "Okay," I said, stifling my growing disappointment. "It's late, we'll just wait until tomorrow and see how you feel." The next day, I had scheduled a group painting lesson with one of her favorite painters, Beth Ames Swartz, who I had flown in specifically for this event. "I'm telling you how I feel." "I don't want to do it," Jada said. "Well, you don't know what it is, so you can't know if you want to do it or not. It's my birthday, just cancel it." Jada snapped. "I'll cancel it in the morning." "Just go to sleep and see how you feel," I snapped back. "Cancel it now." Jada shrieked. "What the hell is your problem?" I asked. That was the most disgusting display of ego I have ever seen in my life. She said. "Ego? Ego? You are the most ungrateful. I ain't never doing shit for you ever again." "Good. I don't want shit from you anyway." At this point, we are both screaming at the top of our lungs, which was very uncharacteristic. We had struggled to transcend the verbal killing fields of our childhood homes. This night was unlike any before or since. The pressure cooker of our perfect picture was cracking. We were so heated that we forgot that we were sharing the hotel suite with Willow. There was a tiny loft above our bedroom. Willow had been listening the whole time. Willow slowly emerged, frightened, shaking, crying, both hands clutching her ears. Just stop. Stop. Please stop. This is the worst I've ever felt as a parent. I immediately calmed down and moved to comfort Willow. She recoiled, refusing to let me touch her. Just figure it out. Both of you, figure it out. With that, Willow left and went to sleep with Jaden. Jada and I didn't speak anymore in Santa Fe. We didn't speak on the flight back to Los Angeles. We didn't speak for a few days after we got home. Our marriage wasn't working. We could no longer pretend. We were both miserable, and clearly something had to change. I retire, I said. I retire from trying to make you happy. You are free. You need to go make yourself happy and prove to me that it's even possible. But I quit, you go do you, and I may go do me. Jada and I were suffering the brutal death of our romantic fantasies, the burning away of the idealistic illusion of the perfect marriage and the perfect family. Neither of us wanted a divorce, we knew we loved each other, and some aspects of our union were magical. But the structure of the life that we had established was strangling both of us. We'd gotten married in our 20s, we were now in our 40s. Our unhealed inner children were choking the shit out of each other. And that had to stop. We both had work to do, and we agreed that this phase would not be together. The painful awakening was to the reality that we were two separate people on two independent, individual journeys. We had simply chosen to walk this portion together. We cried like crazy, hugged, and agreed to let each other go. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping. For only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And stand together yet not too near together. For the pillars of the temple stand apart. Jada sent me this quote from Khalil Gibran and repeated over and over, what's true will remain. We had concluded that no one can make a person happy. You can make a person smile, you can compose a moment that helps a person to feel good, you can deliver a joke that makes a person laugh, you can create an environment where a person feels safe. We can and must be helpful and kind and loving, but whether a person is happy or not is utterly out of your control. Every person must wage a solitary internal war for their own contentment. We agreed that Jada's happiness had to be her responsibility, and my happiness had to be my responsibility. We were going to seek our distinct, innermost personal joys, and then we were going to return and present ourselves to the relationship and to each other already happy, not coming to each other begging with empty cups, demanding the other person fulfill our needs. We felt that this vampiric relational model was unfair, unrealistic, destructive, even abusive. To place the responsibility for your happiness on anybody other than yourself is a recipe for misery. 19. Retreat. I had achieved everything I'd ever dreamed: career, family, businesses, health, megastardom, a house with a name. In fact, it was better than I had dreamed it. More money, more fame, more property, more success. And I did everything the right way. I had reached the mountaintop, then discovered that the clouds had hidden an even higher peak, and then I'd scaled that one. Short of raising jokers from the dead, what else do y'all want me to do? I did it as big and as bold and as brightly as anyone had ever done it. Or probably ever will do it. What the fuck is everybody so upset about? How is it even possible that my life is falling apart again? What am I missing? Is it just me, or does everybody who's going through a breakup or difficult times during a relationship call their exes? I guess it somehow brings relief to talk to somebody who hates you less than they used to. They've processed their disappointment and disgust, refracted it through distance and time, subtracted the 12 to 15% they now see was their fault. It's actually closer to 50%, resulting in the good times being bronzed in their memories and a pleasant nostalgic twinge when your number pops up on their caller ID. And not to forget, they hate their current man now, so you don't look so bad. Tanya had moved to Trinidad after we broke up. She wanted out of LA, too much noise, too much history, probably even too much will. But we stayed on good terms, and I had helped her move. I hadn't seen her in a few years. She was married now, with 2 beautiful little island-toasted babies, Marley and Sakai. On the phone, her voice sounded different, beach life kind of different, a sun-sweetened softness, a calmness, a transformation all the way to her name. She now went by Tiana, Ty for short, an outward gesture of maintaining the essence of who she was, while signaling a purging of past poisons. Ty and her family were back in LA for the Thanksgiving holiday. "You have to meet Scotty," Ty said. "I'm telling you, you'll would vibe." She had been saying this to me for years. Her husband, Scotty Sardinha, was an artist from Trinidad and Tobago, and a far cry from the executives, Lakers, and rappers-turned-actors she was used to dealing with. Scotty was different, and she didn't hate him yet, in fact, quite the opposite. I'd been hearing about him, and the beauty of Trinidad, from mutual friends whom Ty had been hosting in her new island haven. Queen Latifah had just come back, and she was raving. Queen has exquisite tastes, and is very particular about her accommodations, so when she says some place is hot, you know it's hot. "I need to borrow your husband," I said. I'm not sure why I said it like that. I think I may be a drama queen. I love the shock value and the amusing bullshittery of tattooing a sentence on someone's memory. I think it also breaks the ice for me. If I land it right, it's so shocking that it takes away the shock of the shocking shit I just said. "Well, damn," Ty said, "how long you need him, and more importantly, what you gonna use him for?" We always laughed easy. "I've never been to Trinidad," I said. Queen said it's hot. "Oh, that's perfect," Ty said excitedly. I could tell she was already seeing the beach parties and art exhibits they were going to take me to. "We're going next month, for Christmas," she said. "I want him to take me tomorrow," I said firmly. "I gotta get out of LA." "Well damn, nigga, tomorrow is Thanksgiving." Ty's known me long enough to know when something's going on with me. And she's loved me long enough to want to help. "I mean, shit, y'all can eat, we'll leave after dinner," I said reassuringly. "I can't go tomorrow," Ty said. "I just wanna go with Scotty." Beat. 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 Hello? Scotty Sardinha had never been on a private plane before. And it had been almost 15 years since I went anywhere without security. "Yeah, man," he says in his easy Caribbean accent, dreadlocks tied back behind his head, "no problem, man. This is my island. I know plenty people there. Trust me. Everything will be cool. Don't study it." Scotty was definitely not the type of guy I was used to hanging out with. He was laid back and comfortable with just letting things happen around him. I was used to wrestling and bending the universe to my will through sheer discipline and exertion. Scotty seemed pleased to let the universe bend whichever way it wanted, and then sit back, inhale, and laugh about it. "I'll show you a true Trini experience," Scotty said somewhere over the Gulf of Mexico. It had been decades since I had gone anywhere without the place being prepped and briefed. "Are you sure it's going to be okay when we land?" "I'm kinda famous," I said. "No way, man. I'm telling you, Trinis are cool people. Most laid-back time of your life. They don't really study people. They are not even going to care that you're Will Smith. It's gonna be fine, trust me." We landed at Piarco International Airport in Trinidad around 2 p.m. Bedlam ensued. The entire airport staff was on the tarmac. Airport security surrounds me and escorts us to a private room. Scotty is in shock, he's never seen anything like this in his life. I don't know why they are getting on like this, man. They come like it's never see come see. It's just unruly. Scotty takes out his cell phone to contact his friend Jason, who was picking us up. Scotty didn't know any of the movie star rules trademark symbol, particularly, Rule 4A, Section 2, plan ahead for all departures and arrivals. It's difficult to move film stars through crowds. Note, you should call your friend who's picking you and the movie star up before you land at the airport. Jason. "Nah, man," Scotty yelled into the cell phone. "I told ya we was on the way." "No, Jason. I meant on the plane, I called ya from the plane. Come now, man. It was a personal, private plane. Where you, man? How far you reach? Jason. No. That's too loom. Drive faster than that. The center of Scotty's charm is he doesn't see people as somebodies and nobodies, everybody's somebody. I couldn't remember the last time I had carried my own luggage. As prosaic as that might sound, no security, no assistance, in a foreign country, for me was an intimidating, epic adventure. 40 minutes later, airport security escorted us to Jason's SUV. We got safely into the car and off to Scotty's childhood home. I wasn't sure what I was seeking, but I had told him, no hotels, no car services, no formal plans. I wanted to be in his life, in his house, with his friends, doing whatever they would ordinarily do if the Fresh Prince wasn't here. One of his childhood friends, Che Lovelace, was a 43-year-old painter from a prominent Trini arts family. He had an exhibit that night. We dropped our gear at Scotty's mom's house and rolled over to Che's show at the Aquarella Galleries. Scotty was driving. You just relax and make yourself at home, man. Scotty said. My crew won't give you no trouble. Everybody here will be respectful of your space. I don't know, Scotty, I said, I've never been here before, but we may want to be prepared for people being excited. No, man, not here. Difference rent scene. These are my folks, and they are not on all that. My people not like that. We arrived at the art show, 2 steps out of the car, and it was a massive, chaotic mob scene. A couple of hundred people cheering, pushing, grabbing, screaming. It was all love, but as the saying goes, sometimes, love hurts. Excited crowds can be dangerous. Scotty is now in full security mode, trying to get me through the electrified crowd of his folks. It was the first time that I had ever had security who was wearing flip-flops. It was also the first time since I had become famous that I didn't have backup. No security, no one to call, I didn't know where I was, where the exits were, where the US Embassy was. Nothing. It even felt like I didn't speak the language. It's what a baby must feel like being expelled from the safety of the womb. I was a 42-year-old newborn. We make our way through the gallery. Safe now in the artist's VIP, I meet Che and his family, his younger sister, Asha Lulu Lovelace, Che's son, Roscoe, and Lulu's daughters, Isla and Eva. There is something about the Trini son that bakes children to perfection. These were the most beautiful kids you can imagine. Che is a figurative artist, his work mixes realism with abstraction. He typically paints figures from the local carnival, on board using pastel paints and powdered pigments, vividly capturing the vibrancy of Caribbean life. I got lost in the eyes of his depiction of a young woman in a painting he called Dancehall Queen. I felt her welcoming me to the island. The exhibition was well attended, and the varied cross-section of Trinidad's melting pot was a canvas in itself. Eventually, we headed back to the Lovelace family home. A covered porch, music, food, conversation. Nestled in a lush area known as Cascade, the home's green exterior caused the house to almost disappear into the surrounding forestry. The lamine, the Trini word for hanging out partying, happened on the covered wooden veranda, which was open on 3 sides to the sloping garden and the Cascade Valley. There was a dining table, Morris chairs, and my favorite spot, the standard Trini hammock. The Lovelace family is a family of artists, poets, intellectuals. Earl Lovelace, the patriarch, is a renowned novelist, journalist, playwright, and poet. Lulu is a professor of cinema at the University of the West Indies. Walt, the older brother, is a cinematographer. The house itself was filled with Che's artwork. The conversation was vibrant and expansive. What is that sweet scent? I asked. That's called the ylang ylang tree, Lulu said. It's best this time of the year when the breeze comes in off the west. I had never heard the music of Lulu's playlist, Senegalese singers Ismail Lo, Bababa Mail, and Youssou N'Dour, all harmonizing with the ylang ylang tree, transporting me into a sweet wistfulness. Delicious food, Caribbean breezes, toasted caramel children scattered and scampering. Are you spending the night? Isla asked, in her 6-year-old innocence. I laughed that adults laugh when they are not really laughing. Well, apart from one night in the Lincoln bedroom after Bill Clinton's inauguration, I haven't stayed over at anyone's house since I was 12 years old. I don't even stay at my parents' spots when I go back to Philly. I know you're only 6, but you need to understand that there are significant logistical difficulties to safely transporting a global icon around the world. For starters, I travel with a minimum of 10 people, meaning we need a minimum of 11 rooms. And if it's at all possible, for security purposes, my entourage will take a whole floor of the finest hotels in the world. Of course, my room is always the one all the way at the end of the hallway, the room with the double doors. Not to mention, I don't really know any of you, I barely know Scotty. I'm here alone, and I've never been alone. So, the thought of staying over with strangers, even strangers as kind and as beautiful as your family, scares the living's daylights out of me. So, yes, yes, I'm spending the night. So, where's my room? I asked her. My room was nicknamed the dungeon. It was a storage area with a garage vibe that had been converted into a guest room. Books, old vinyl records, and pottery were strewn about. The only piece of furniture was a handcrafted, wooden platform bed that I would later find out Scotty had made. A white sheet billowed over the wrought iron, glassless window. The 80-degree Caribbean nights left no need for anything else. My luggage was still at Scotty's mom's house. I'll come true tomorrow with it, Scotty said, as he drove away, leaving the biggest movie star in the world with no toothbrush at a stranger's house. When I agreed to stay, I thought it was clear that I was agreeing for me and Scotty. I can't believe this joker left me here. Charlie Mac's gonna shove Scotty's head in a toilet when he finds out. I always know my direction. It was a Dagio prerequisite. At any moment, during my childhood, he would ask, which way is north? Or point east. He had made it very clear that the passenger in any vehicle is the navigator. The driver gets the last word on the radio and the temperature, the passenger navigator is in charge of the map and the call on left or right, and snacks, we would have to feed Dagio while he was driving. This night, though, I couldn't see the moon, and I had been distracted during the drive to the house. I wasn't really up on my star constellations. As I lay 12 inches off a concrete floor somewhere in the Caribbean, I began to chuckle, my lifelong reaction to trauma and anxiety. My chuckle upgraded to a giggle, my giggle escalated into a guffaw, and my guffaw bloomed into full-on hysterics. Where am I? What am I doing? What is going on? How did my life get here? I don't even know where here is. Nobody I love knows where I am. This would be the perfect time for someone to kill me, not that anyone would want to kill me, I mean, Wild Wild West wasn't that bad. What if a woman walked in right now? What if she was wearing a long, white see-through nightgown? What if she put her finger to her lips, shush? What if she kissed me? What if she told me I was on the right path? What if I believed her? I slept for about 12 hours. I went to sleep at 42 years old. When I woke up, I felt like I was about 28. I would have slept longer, but the aroma of the tomato choker, smoked herring, sada roti, homemade bread, and local fruit I didn't even recognize hit me like a dose of sweet-smelling salts. After I embarrassed myself by eating 3 platefuls and finishing off Isla's half-eaten bread, Scotty finally pulled up. Still no toothbrush. My boy Jonathan has a Bertram yacht, Scotty announced. We're looking to go DDI. The entire Lovelace family oohs and claps, clearly DDI is something good. What's DDI? I ask. Down the islands. We set sail at about 9 a.m., me, Scotty, Che, Lulu, Roscoe, Isla, Eva, and Jonathan. After about 40 minutes, we tucked into a secluded cove, off Chakachaka Island. Scotty, Che, and Jonathan are in the water before the anchor hits the sea floor. I was trying to stay awake, but either the soothing sway of the Bertram or my gluttonous assault on Isla's leftovers sent me back into the land of Nod. 2 hours later, I awake to find the boat empty. Everyone's in the water now except Roscoe, Che's 5-year-old son. He's eating a ripe mango, or, more accurately, it looks like he's wearing it, or it's eating him, he's drenched in the flesh and the juice. I yelled to Scotty and crew, Uru. What's the plan? Whatcha mean, man? I'm saying, the plan, for today, what we doing? We here, Scotty said, gesturing to the horizon. I know, but what are we doing? They all kind of look at one another. What does he mean? I'm saying, you'll got some jet skis or something? I say. Like, what's around here? What we getting into? Look around, man, Scotty called from the water, we reconnecting, and Lamine dot. What the fuck is reconnecting and Lamine? Roscoe and his mango had been watching the whole exchange. I went back inside, lay down on the couch, closed my eyes for another 30 minutes. These jokers are really about to sit around and do nothing, all day. I was dying. There was no service on my phone, so no texts or calls. We were an hour from land, and 90 minutes from an airport. I was trapped, I felt like a caged animal. I was getting angry. How dare they waste my valuable time like this? I stand up and head back out on deck. They are still in the same spots, just Floaten and Yapin. I couldn't understand what they were doing. I was jittery, I was pacing, checking the time on my phone. And then I caught myself, I noticed the turbulence of my thoughts and feelings, which stood in stark contradistinction to my surroundings, and I thought, oh shit, this is crackhead behavior. I could not sit still. My mind was agitated, I needed an activity, a target, a mission, an adventure. Something, anything, to do. I caught eyes with Roscoe, peeking over the curvature of yet another mango, this one's bigger than his head. He was just looking at me sweetly, as if to say, you know you look crazy, right? It all slowly drifted into focus, am I an addict? I don't do drugs, I don't really drink, I'm not hooked on sex like some ghetto hyena. But I did not know how to stop, or be still, or be quiet, or alone. I'm addicted to the approval of others, and to secure their approval, I became addicted to winning. And to guarantee and sustain my stream of massive victories, I became addicted to working, to grinding, and obsessively pursuing perfection. But there was a deeper issue at play. I saw downtime as the enemy, a place where you lose things. When I had left space between Melanie and me, she had cheated. Dejo saw the space between tasks at the shop as laziness. Daryl never wanted me to sit down in the gym, he saw downtime as the crack where the pleasure principle would poison all our hard work. I never wanted Jeff to put interludes on our albums because I saw the lull between tracks as the empty space for the audience to stop listening. I didn't want to leave space between my TV show, the next movie, and my next record, because I didn't want to give people an opportunity to fall in love with the rock during my absence. But the most perturbing aspect of my need to fill every second was that it kept me from having to feel. My mind drifted to my I Am Legend phone call with JL. The film had broken global box office records, but still I was dissatisfied. The subtle sickness was becoming a whole lot less subtle. I asked myself, how much did I Am Legend need to make for me to be happy? How much would have been enough? How many more consecutive #1 movies do I need? How much money would it take for me to feel safe and secure? How many Grammys or Academy Awards do I need to feel loved and approved of? How much healthier do my kids need to be? How many more times does Jada need to say, I love you? When will enough be enough? The problem is, the more you get, the more you want. It's like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. We develop a tolerance that makes us need more just to get the same high. I started to recognize the game, the trick, the insanity, the carrot on the stick. I had never liked vampire movies, but I suddenly understood their mythology. They are a metaphor for insatiable human hunger, unquenchable thirsts, and chronic dissatisfaction, the attempt to fill a spiritual hole with external things. If unparalleled winning and achieving everything I've ever dreamed of does not secure perfect happiness and ultimate bliss, then what does? I looked at Roscoe. As far as he was concerned, the key to life was mango. Come on in. The water warm. Lulu shouted. I don't know how to swim, I said. Clearly, they had never heard an actual human say that before. First, they laughed, then came the realization that I wasn't joking with them. And then they all looked at me like I was starring in a UNICEF commercial. Please help this stereotypical Afro-American urban homeboy, just $1 a week will help this joker learn how to swim. I had always feared the ocean, it seemed so vast and unpredictable. It could be calm and beautiful one minute, and then violent and monstrous the next. Even as a child, I stayed far from the water on family trips to Atlantic City. I remember being at the Grand Canyon and Mom saying, "This entire canyon was created by water." That was a terrifying proposition to me. The ocean and water, we just didn't vibe. One of my most traumatic childhood memories was of nearly drowning in a public swimming pool. I can still see myself underwater, disoriented, I couldn't figure out which way was up. I'm choking and I know I'm dying. Mom leaps from her deck chair and dives into the pool. I can see her hand coming toward my face. She grabs me under my arms and lifts me out of the pool onto the side. Years later, as I recount to one of Mom's friends my harrowing brush with death, Mom's face contorts into confusion. She's trying to read me. We've been here many times, but she can tell something's different. You know that never happened, right? Mom gently asks. What do you mean? I say. Willard, that never happened, she says, a little more urgently. I remember the whole thing, Mom, I say. You never got in a pool, you never got in the ocean. We sent you to swimming class once, and you wouldn't even put your feet in the water. But, Mom, I can see it all. You had an afro, and you were wearing a blue bathing suit. Well, it must be your other mother, because this one never had that experience. I begin to forensically examine my memory. And then it hits me, if I was under the water, disoriented, how did I see Mom jump into the pool? Then my cinematic experience kicks in, I realize that the angles of my visual recollection are not from my point of view. In my mind's eye, I'm seeing the incident as if I were on the side of the pool. The two-shot of me and Mom in my mind is impossible, this is a false memory. But all my anxiety about the ocean, my fear and aversion to water, is 100% real. This revelation shook me. Is my memory really that unreliable? Did I dream it? Did I make it up? Is it a past life experience? If it was, what the hell was Mom doing there, and why did she have an afro? Either way, it didn't really matter, I still hated the ocean. Memory is not a flawless recording of what actually happened. It's not a video of your experience. It's not even a photograph. It is your psychological, artistic rendering. It is more like an abstract impressionist painting of what happened than it is a pure, unfiltered depiction. And it's not fixed, the painting morphs, it fades or expands over time. Sometimes you add colors to a memory that weren't there a year ago, or 5 years ago, or even collapse multiple memories and paint them into one. The problem is that most of us trust our memories implicitly. Our memories are the basis for our perception of reality. We then commit to these conclusions, unlocking the requisite emotions and the corresponding actions and behaviors. We move into the world clinging to our flawed assumptions, unleashing upon ourselves the cosmic consequences of wrong ideas. I trust the memory that I nearly drowned, in fact, I'm fully committed to the truth of that story. Water is dangerous, and it tried to kill me when I was little. So, when my brother and sisters are playing in the ocean, I'm by myself halfway up the beach. As an adult, I don't let my kids go in the ocean by themselves. The fear and anxiety take hold in my mind and then constrict my ability to be able to enjoy the beauty of 70% of the Earth's surface. Just relax, man. I'm barely 10 yards from the shore, but the sea is choppy. The water is up to my waist. As Scotty sits down, the water is up to his neck. Take a dip and chill, he says. It won't go over your head. Yo, man, shit is touching my legs, I say. Seaweed, man. Sargassum. It's a problem we working on. Just come in. Scotty reaches down and grabs a handful of whatever sargassum is and slings it away from me. Apparently, the fact that it's now 8 feet away is supposed to make me comfortable. I take a deep breath, and I sit. The sea is almost translucent, and as warm as bathwater. The waves are knocking and jolting and tossing me around. Don't fight it, man, Scotty says. It's a flow. It'll carry you out, but it'll bring you back. Scotty is calmly floating in complete harmony with the rhythm of the sea, and I'm banjing around like a monkey fucking a football. And while I never got fully comfortable, I began to understand the human relationship with the ocean. Reconnecting and lemine. The ebb and flow of the tide is the heartbeat of the planet. When they sit in the ocean all day, they are tuning themselves into the frequency of the earth. This alignment, to Scotty, was the highest human experience. When he spends time with anyone he loves, he wants to spend it in the ocean, surfing, fishing, boating, water skiing, swimming, reconnecting, and lemine. When I left Trinidad, I was clear about one thing: I knew I was missing something, something about life, something about relationships, perhaps even something about me. I just didn't know what it was. But I was no longer fully defending my old belief systems. I was open to the idea that maybe fight camp mentality, in the domestic realm, isn't quite the optimal relating paradigm. I didn't yet know what the new ideas were, but I was certain there would have to be some. Why are you so afraid of silence? Silence is the root of everything. If you spiral into its void, 100 voices will thunder messages you long to hear. Rumi. I hate it when people send me Instagram quotes that are supposed to be deep. They always come with a little fancy border, and the background's always mauve, and in some woke-ass, illegible, calligraphy font, and when they truly want to get you, they add a picture of a really, really old Asian man. Silence is the root of everything made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. I make noise for a living. I was so confused, I texted back, WTF? My phone rang immediately. It was my boy Antoine. Man, don't be sending me your little pseudo-inspirational Buddha babble, I said. If you can send me quotes, send me lyrics from Talib Kweli. I just got back from India, he said, cracking up, knowing he had no business sending me that Rumi bullshit. That is no excuse, I said. What were you doing in India? I did a thing called Vipassana. It's a 10-day silent retreat, no television, no phone, no talking. It was wild. You have to do it. No talking for 10 days? What's it called again? Vipassana. It means to see things as they really are. Antoine and I hadn't spoken in over a year, but I guess he just needed somebody to talk to. It's weird how people can feel when you're seeking. Higher curiosity seems to emit energy at a different frequency. As soon as you truly open to something different, it's like a cosmic shout into an energetic megaphone. Why-oh? Where y'all at? You see I'm struggling over here? Yeah, man, I'm not sure I'm ready for India, I said. But I do like the idea of seeing things as they really are. My entire childhood I shared a bedroom with Harry. If you drew a timeline that stretched from that day I met Melanie, when I was 14, all the way to my marriage today, I have only been single for a total of 15 days. I hated being alone. I wanted to give Jada her space in LA, so I decided to spend a couple of weeks alone, just I, myself, and me. I wanted to see if the three of us could get along. No television, no phone, no people. No talking. I went to our Utah house in the mountains. Totally secluded, at 8,400-foot altitude. I'd organized to have food left at the door, but no human contact. Other than a solitary morning walk, I wasn't going to leave the house for 14 straight days. Antoine had only done 10, so I had to beat him. Day 1 was exciting. No texts, no email, no calls. I was preparing my own meals for the first time in 30 years. They were nasty, but I felt good about the attempt. No television, or computers other than my iPad, which I'd filled with books to read. This was the first time in my life I had ever read a whole book in one day, Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. Day 2 and Day 3 each felt like they were about 39 hours long, which would have been almost bearable if it weren't for the incessant chatter of the entourage in my head. Days 4 and 5 almost broke me. I was crawling up the walls. I was even thinking about taking sleeping aids during the day so I could get some relief. I just somehow knew NyQuil wasn't an approved Vipassana substance. I had committed to myself that I would do 14 days, and I'd learned a long time ago, I might break my promise to you, but I'll never break my promise to me. Day 6, I caught myself in the mirror with a pair of tweezers, plucking my eyebrows. I knew I was in trouble. By day 7, I had beautifully sculpted eyebrows, and I discovered that there's a name for this condition, trichotillomania, aka hair-pulling disorder. I knew I didn't have it, but there was always day 8. Day 8. That's it, I gotta call somebody. Shit, nope, not gonna do that. Why do I feel like I wanna cry? Vipassana's fucking stupid. Wait, what time did I start? Am I counting a day from midnight, or from the exact hour I started? So, this is day 8, or 9. Antoine's a fucking moron. So is Rumi. By day 9, I noticed that my dreams were becoming more vivid, and creative ideas were flowing. I started filling up notebook after notebook with rhymes and songs and thoughts and opinions and movies and poetry. I also started reading about meditation and became intrigued with the idea of watching my mind. It was my introduction to words like self-observation, self-investigation, consciousness, and awareness. I tasted a tiny, fleeting moment of what I would later come to recognize as peace. It didn't last too long, but it was a scent that I would learn to follow. This time alone in Utah launched the greatest period of reading in my life, a period that would last for the next several years. As a very partial list, I devoured the autobiography of Malcolm X, Bhagavad Gita with Macron as it is, The Road Less Traveled, Don Quixote, The Untethered Soul, Teachings of the Buddha, The Odyssey, Moby Dick, How to Win Friends and Influence People, The 5 Love Languages, As a Man Thinketh, Oneness, Zen in the Art of Archery, Plato's Republic, The Way of the Superior Man, Iron John, Aspire, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, The Power Path, Man's Search for Meaning, and on and on and on and on. I must have read at least 100 books over the next few years. Day 10 was the first time I tried to meditate. Day 11, I gave up meditation. It literally felt like my mind was attacking me. Day 12, I gave meditation another shot. I read Chodron's How to Meditate, a practical guide to making friends with your mind. I like making friends, I thought. I began trying to listen to and observe what was going on in my head, and a painful realization washed across me: I wasn't enjoying being with myself. In fact, I wanted to get away from myself as fast as I could. And it dawned on me, if I don't want to be with me, why the fuck would anybody else want to be with me? 20. Surrender. What would make you happy? I'm not talking about Will Smith, because he comes with a lot of baggage. But you, if you could be master of the universe, and you could snap your fingers and have any life you wanted, what would it look like? That was a really heavy question. Michaela Berm is a single red curly hair over 5 feet tall. Her Austrian accent makes everything she says ring with psychoanalytical authenticity. She's an author, public speaker, and counselor, with more than 3 decades and 35,000 client hours in the trenches. Her in-depth training in Jungian psychology, trauma, and relationship therapy is seasoned with an expertise in tantric sexuality. The Google search alone had me feeling exposed and vulnerable, so when she walked in carrying a silver-spangled Moroccan camel-style bag, with indeterminate fur, and her first question was, what would make you happy? I was instantly off balance. What does she mean by that? What makes her think I'm not happy? Apart from the whole, can you come and help me because I'm not happy thing. To me, it was blasphemous to even imagine something other than the life I'd created. My imagination is usually a whitewater rapids ride of possibilities and potential. But for some reason, this question led me into an area of my inner world that had danger signs all over it, yellow police tape everywhere I looked. The answer would have to be extracted from the place where only the bad kids go, the murky, swampy, shadow regions of my psyche. I don't even let myself think from inside that neighborhood, so I'm damn sure not going to speak from there. I mean, what if I rip down all the boards and barriers and barricades, and whatever demon is in there takes over? What if I can't put it back? What if I like it being out? But I approached the dark place. I wanted to see what was in there. I ducked under the first layer of yellow tape. What is she really asking me? What life would I create if I didn't give a fuck? And then the shadow spoke, I would have a harem. The vulnerability of exposing my unprocessed, unfiltered fantasies first seized me with embarrassment, then filled me with anger, like she'd tricked me. Maybe Michaela's a witch. How could she get me to reveal my filthy shadow world that fast? Michaela didn't flinch. She retrieved a journal and a pen from her multicolored enchanted satchel and said, okay, a harem. Interesting. So, who's in it? What do you mean? I said. Who is in your harem? The women. Tell me their names. Michaela is holding her pen over her journal, awaiting my answer to her question. This is some Jedi mind trick shit, some Jungian psycho-tantric embodiment voodoo. She ain't getting me with this. Don't sit there like you don't have an answer, Michaela said. You know exactly who the women are. This is not the first time you've thought about this, you've played this out over and over again in your mind. What are their names? I just don't understand why you need to know who they are. I need to know because I'm going to run your harem, she said, as if I was supposed to know that this was an actual job people did. Look, you are Will effing Smith. You are one of the richest, most beloved people on earth. If you can't have the life that you want, the rest of us are screwed. Misty Copeland, I said, calling Michaela's bluff. She's that black ballerina. I know who Misty Copeland is, Michaela said, as she jotted down her name. Who else? Hallie, I said, stone-faced. Let's play, which lady, what else you want? You know harems are not just for sex, Michaela said. Harems are convened for inspiration. You need a doctor, you need a painter, an architect, a couple lawyers, a musician, a poet. And not just Americans, you should be hearing multiple languages. Your harem should be made up of the most brilliant, unique, and powerful women from around the world. Your responsibility will be resources, and devotion to their individual growth and blossoming. And in return, they will feed you and shower you with their feminine gifts and send you into the world, full and inspired. For the next 2 hours, Michaela wrote feverishly. She took out her laptop, I guess she's a modern witch, and showed me pictures and videos and TED Talks of the most dynamic and talented women from across the globe. I'm pacing and laughing and inspired. I was dancing in the shadow zone. And somehow, the demons within me that had seemed too dark and evil to even consider, didn't seem so scary in the light of Michaela's acceptance. When all was said and done, we had about 25 names, we had trip routings, global events to attend, like Carnival in Rio and Holi, the Hindu Festival of Color in India. We had a list of people who my harem and I should meet. Michaela and I high-fived, and I agreed to start making contact with the women first thing Monday morning. I had a couple of nights to sleep on it, and by Tuesday, close of business, I was out. With every hour, my enthusiasm waned. Every single harem equation in my mind kept adding up to a hellscape. If I can't figure out how to nurture and nourish one extraordinary woman, what the fuck made me think I could care for 25? I don't want a harem, I said. Of course you don't, Michaela responded. But why did you think you did? I guess I felt if I had enough women, I'd always be able to find at least one of them who liked me. As long as you do things for the approval of a woman, Michaela said, you will never be free. That is a descending hell. And I'll tell you, when a woman sees that she can bend you, she loses trust in you. We need you to be solid, we need your yes to be a yes, and your no to be a no. As long as you are twisting and contorting and selling yourself out for the affection of others, you will always be untrustworthy. Michaela began to refer to my nice guy persona as Uncle Fluffy. He was the pleaser in me, the part of me that had to smile no matter how I was feeling, doing things I didn't want to do just to keep the peace. He wasn't allowed to be in a bad mood or have a bad day. Uncle Fluffy hated conflict, so much so that he'd even lie to avoid it. He signed every autograph, shook every hand, kissed every baby. Fluffy was jovial, talented, smart, generous. Uncle Fluffy needed everyone to like him. I am so good, I am so nice and resourceful, you don't have to worry, I'm harmless, you can trust me. I'll take care of your every need. Uncle Fluffy was born as my strategic childhood persona. If I was funny enough, sweet enough, harmless enough, entertaining enough, then I wouldn't be hurt, my mother would be safe, and my family would be happy, no one would ever leave me. Fluffy wants to be approved of. It's the only safety he can conceive. As an adult, he became my armor and my shield. I was strangling my truth in the hopes of feeling safe, gaining approval, and being loved. I want you to have an experience of yourself minus the need to be approved of, Michaela said. Who are you really? What does your heart truly want? What are your deepest values and authentic goals? The problem with Uncle Fluffy is that you are never free to make a pure decision, one that is honest and true for you. You are always forced by Fluffy to compromise and to do the thing that gets the most approval, likes, or sales. Will's creativity is thwarted by Fluffy's need for approval. What are Will's feelings, Will's opinions, Will's needs, Will's ideas? I could see her point that as a child I had crafted a certain identity, that I had decided that there was a specific way that I had to be to survive and thrive in my environment. I could also see that the behavior was often in conflict with the truth of what I was actually thinking and feeling. But Uncle Fluffy did some beautiful things. He built her lake. He let Willow stop whipping her hair when she was done. He begged Jeff and JL to move to LA. He doubled Sherry's child support when Trey moved in with Will. He auditioned at Quincy Jones's house when Will was too scared and he wanted to leave. Uncle Fluffy was swayed by his admiration for Muhammad Ali to make a movie that Will was too afraid to make. Uncle Fluffy has been a wonderful friend, Michaela said. He just needs to work for you, not the other way around. Uncle Fluffy was created based on a lie, designed on the false premise that something was wrong with me, that I was a coward. His job was to perpetually apologize for my shortcomings and guarantee that I was always safe and loved. And even as the awareness dawned that perhaps he had outlived his usefulness, the fact still remained, Uncle Fluffy paid the bills. Fluffy was further complicated by his shadow counterpart, whom Michaela named the General. When Fluffs had exhausted his reserves of charm and magnanimity, and yet was still unsuccessful in his attempts to secure adoration, he summoned the General. The General's job was to get the flag to the top of the hill by any means necessary, and to covertly, and not so covertly, punish those who dared to dissent, even myself. Basically, when I had suppressed my real needs so thoroughly for so long, and still didn't get the adoration and approval I'd sought, my anguish would express itself as the General. Because Uncle Fluffy is masking my true feelings, which I'm not even in touch with, when the General shows up, people are shocked and confused. It was sweetness, 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 and then sour, sour, sourness. These personas weave a universe in which you are trapped, Michaela said, a spiderweb of demands, obligations, and expectations. And if you dare to step outside of these constructs, you receive exactly the disdain and disapproval you fear most. But neither of these identities is you. The question is, can you find safety in yourself and not from some external source of approval? Can you become a freestanding man? Michaela and I worked together over the next few years. Her curriculum centered on the idea of becoming a freestanding man. Essentially, a freestanding man is self-aware, self-reliant, self-motivated, self-confident, and utterly unswayed by people's approval or disapproval. He knows who he is, he knows what he wants. And because of this, he surrenders his considerable gifts into the service of others. You have to sensitize to your own inner landscape and map out the terrain of who you really are, your true desires and true needs, Michaela said. When someone asks how you feel, don't just throw out a fluffy answer, think about it. Narrate your feelings, at least internally. Michaela was trying to get me to put honesty and authenticity above my need for approval, as a means of cultivating trust in myself and becoming trustworthy to others. In the beginning, I found myself still collapsing in the face of disapproval. It was hard to see disappointment in people's eyes or feel their anger toward me if I refused to fulfill their desires. I was trying to learn to be true to myself and not betray myself and override my own feelings. It was excruciating trying to stop saying yes when I meant no, and to stop saying no to things that I actually wanted. One of the first things we set out to dismantle was my fame belief system that if I was in public, I wasn't allowed to say no to any fan request. If someone wanted a picture, an autograph, a handshake, a hug, it didn't matter if I was eating or talking or not feeling well, I had obligated myself to fulfilling the promise of my image. In 2017, I was on the jury at the Cannes Film Festival alongside Spanish director and screenwriter Pedro Almodóvar, German film director Marin Aide, Chinese actress Fan Bingbing, South Korean auteur Park Chan-wook, actress Jessica Chastain, French actress and director Agnes Jaoui, Italian director Paolo Sorrentino, and Gabriel Yared, a Lebanese-French composer. During this time, I was practicing the behavioral change of setting and honoring my personal boundaries. I was going to tell people the truth of how I was feeling, I was going to say no when I meant no, and yes when I meant yes. It was day 5, and we'd already watched 14 movies, 10 of which were subtitled, and 6 of which were experimental. The jury deliberations were the greatest cinematic education of my life, but watching and debating 3 movies a day was physically and intellectually exhausting. With one more movie to watch before dinner, I needed a beat to be quiet and reset. I had 30 minutes to hit the gym before rejoining the jury. I had told myself that this was my time, for me, and I had promised myself that I would not allow anyone to infringe on it. I entered the gym, and it was totally empty. Thank the blessed heavens. I headed over to the AB crunch machine. I was going to do 15 minutes of core, 15 minutes of cardio, and be out. Perfect. Midway through my second set, a 30-something black dude with a British accent entered and immediately noticed me. He whipped out his phone as he approached, scrambling to start recording. "Hey, Will," he said, flipping into landscape mode, "say hi to my cousin." As he got within a couple of feet of my face, I reached up, putting my hand over the lens of his camera and pushed it down. "Hey, sorry, man," I said, "I'm training now." "It's just a quick video, Will," he said. "My cousin has Down syndrome. He loves you. I promise it will be quick. The Fresh Prince is the only thing that makes him smile. Uncle Fluffy, Will, just do the video. It's not even for him. It's for a kid with Down syndrome. Me, but I promised myself, this is my private time. And he can't just start filming me without asking first." Uncle Fluffy, he was excited. He's clearly a big fan. Fresh Prince is the only thing that makes the kid smile. Don't be a dick. Me, I'm not being a dick. I'm trying to honor my promises to myself. I'm allowed to not do a video if I don't want to. Is there no sacred space for myself? Uncle Fluffy, sure, there is, your mansion, your limousine services, your penthouse suite, your private jets, all the shit we wouldn't have if I let your newfangled sense of self run our lives. Will, there's nobody in here, the guy said. It's just us. Please, just say hi. I know I looked crazy as shit to this dude. I'm still holding his camera down with a 1,000-yard stare in my eyes, as the war within me raged. I'm sorry, man, I said, but no. The pain in this man's eyes is burned in my memory. It brings tears even to this day. He looked at me with such disbelief. This is not Will Smith. But why not? He said. I paused. I searched for the deepest, most honest answer. Because I don't want to, I said. The man shook his head in disgust, turned, and left the gym. I knew I had done right by myself, but I hated that someone else, an innocent, had gotten caught in the crossfire of my internal war. I never made it to the cardio. I went back to my room and could not stop crying. Over the next 2 years, Michaela and I were joined at the hip. She repeated over and over again, explore. Experience. Experiment. Expand. She set free the wild-minded pathfinder within me, whose vision had been narrowed by the obligations and expectations of being Will Smith. Michaela encouraged me to try new things and meet new people, rekindle my spirit of exploration and adventure. I began to take a fresh sampling of the fruits of the human experience. As you break out of the narrow boundaries of Will Smith, Michaela said, let's really examine all the beliefs and constructs and paradigms that you've bound yourself to. There's a thing I've heard you say a few times, 99% is the same as 0. Yeah, I said, Dejo used to say that all the time. Well, you know, mathematically speaking, 99% is about as far from 0 as you can get. I had used that phrase thousands of times in my life, but for some reason, when Michaela said it, I truly heard it for the first time. This has been a stable, foundational axiom that had driven my operating system. But its falsity was so obvious it opened me up to re-evaluating and re-examining all of my assumptions. If 99% is not the same as 0, what is 72%, or 23%, or 84.69%? Hell, what's 0? Rather than seeing every situation as binary, all of a sudden, the possibilities became infinite. I realized that I had seen the world but never on vacation. So, I began to travel, with no agenda. I spent time with people I admired who I just wanted to get to know, with no financial or business outcome attached. I visited with famed British Iraqi architect, the Queen of the Curve, Zaha Hadid. I became friends with jazz rock pianist Eric Robert Lewis. He told me he'd been trained as a classical pianist and the rigid confines of that discipline had sent him into a nervous breakdown. While in a mental hospital, Bruce Lee had spiritually visited him and told him to use the piano to fight his demons. ELEW, as he's known, developed a martial art style of piano playing. He got rid of the stool, he armored himself with steel forearm sleeves, assumed the kata stance, and began to play in his own liberated, one-of-a-kind style. But Michaela's most important initiative came when she found out that I couldn't swim. "Not on my watch," she said, in one of the only times I managed to surprise her. When I told her I wanted a harem, she didn't flinch, but me not being able to swim sent her to feverishly texting my publicist, Meredith O'Sullivan Wasson, who is friends with the 4-time Olympic gold medalist in swimming Janet Evans. "You are going to develop a relationship with the ocean, the big she," Michaela said. "The ocean is the ultimate woman, a magnificent feminine environment. If you can understand her, you'll understand us all. The ocean holds all the chaotic glory of Mother Nature, and no amount of power or intellect will ever be able to control or manipulate her. She doesn't care how you're feeling, or how you want her to be. All of the things that happen in a woman's psyche and body are analogous to the ocean. The beauty, the storms, the nourishment, the danger, the moods and weather patterns, birth and death. The big she will not be conquered or subdued. Your only hope to truly enjoy her is to love her, respect her, and surrender. I really like this for you because you will be forced to have a beginner's mind. You'll have to navigate her moods and emotions, and you'll have to know when to bow out." I began to woo the big she. Our first date was 1 hour off of Lizard Island, on the Great Barrier Reef. I learned to swim, and I took up scuba diving. When we got a little more serious, I went to the Maldives and found myself in something out of Finding Nemo. When I wanted to explore her feisty side, I dove with 14-foot, 700-pound tiger sharks on Tiger Beach in the Bahamas. And when I felt I was ready to taste her depths, I took an Ocean X Triton submersible beyond the midnight zone, below the bioluminescent band, 3,000 feet down, to what looked like another planet. There were deep-sea creatures hidden in her fathoms that defied my definition of life, that seemed to have been created by another god. I began to see the personality of the big she as an instructive embodiment of the flow of life. I realized that if I am to enjoy her beauty and her bounty, and avoid being destroyed by her, she demands that I am fully attuned, attentive, and committed to understanding her. I settled into the acceptance of my powerlessness, which strangely liberated me. Surrender had always been a negative word for me. It meant losing or failing or giving up. But my burgeoning relationship with the ocean was exposing that my sense of control was actually an illusion. Surrender transformed from a weakness word to an infinite power concept. I had had a bias toward action, thrusting, pushing, striving, struggling, doing, and I began to realize that their opposites were equally as powerful: inaction, receptiveness, acceptance, non-resistance, being. Stopping was equally as powerful as going, resting was equally as powerful as training, silence was equally as powerful as talking. Letting go was equally as powerful as grasping. Surrender to me no longer meant defeat, it was now an equally powerful tool of manifestation. Losing could be equal to winning in terms of my growth and development. I began to understand a perplexing phrase that Gigi used to use: let go and let God. That had always seemed wrong to me. It felt like absolving yourself of your responsibilities, like something that people say when they are too lazy to do what's necessary to build the life they want. But all of a sudden, it took on new and magical meaning. There is an energy that's at work while you're asleep, the energy that fires the sun, that moves the ocean, that beats your heart. You don't have to do everything. In fact, most of the things that get done, you didn't have anything to do with them. Actually, it's a great thing that you were asleep, because if you'd been awake, you would probably have messed it up. And then, a new wording of Gigi's axiom came into my mind: it's not just let go and let God, it's let go and let God work. The surfer and the ocean are a team, the mountain and the climber are partners, not adversaries. The great river is going to do 99% of the work, your 1% is to study it, to understand it, to respect its power, and creatively dance within its currents and its laws. Act when the universe is open, and rest when she's closed. I had never heard of it before. I've never smoked weed, never done cocaine or taken any pills, and other than a vodka and cranberry once in a while, I will pass a piss test at the Tour de France. So when my friend Veronica suggested it, I laughed politely, and said, thank you, but no thank you. I don't mess with drugs. Neither do I, she said. Ayahuasca is not drugs. It's medicine. I've known Veronica for years. We never had sex, but we argued like we did. We disagreed about everything. I was incensed by her pessimism, and she, in turn, scorned my optimism. It never dawned on either of us to just talk to other people. I guess we kinda used each other to crash test our theories about life. We knew the other would never easily agree, so when an idea got passed, we knew it was a keeper. But something was new. Her eyes were different, her energy was non-resistant, flexible. She'd had a rough childhood, which I'm sure contributed to her combative disposition. But now, she was calm, stable, there was an undeniable joy about her. She was filled with fresh insight and the passion of someone who'd been somewhere extraordinary and had been utterly transformed. I found myself hanging on her every word. She embodied a new wisdom. Her heart had always felt closed and impenetrable, but now she was open, warm, reachable. In the past, I'd always felt like her parent trying to wrestle a hard-headed child into reality. Today, I felt like Matt Damon listening to Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. I was riveted. I was intrigued. I was curious. Well, whatever you did, I want to do that, I said. Veronica laughed the laugh of the initiated to the uninitiated. She paused, and then began to try to explain the inexplicable. Ayahuasca changed my life, she said. So how does it work? Well, it's a ceremony that goes from sunset to sunrise. It traditionally takes place in the jungles of South America, mostly Peru, now. But wherever you do it, it's led by a shaman. It begins with drinking the most disgusting tea you can possibly imagine. After about an hour it kicks in and then. She shakes her head and shivers, like she's seen things she'll never be able to unsee. And then what? I said. Well, it traps you with your mind. That doesn't sound fun at all, I said. Any issues you may be struggling with, the medicine goes right to them, she said, and brings them to the surface, making you look at them, experience them, and ultimately heal them. I never told you this before, but when I was a teenager, I had an abortion. It was the most devastating choice I ever made. I've been haunted and crippled, I've done therapy for decades but have never been able to shake the shame. In my ayahuasca ceremony, I met my child. He was in heaven. He was so happy, so sweet, so beautiful. I wailed and purged for hours. He forgave me, he even asked me to name him. I named him Zion. And in one night, I got free from a lifetime of guilt. I could sense her yearning to share the fruits of her journey, but there was a hesitation. It's fucking brutal, she said. It ultimately ends in revelation and healing, but the bus trip wins through the darkest parts of your mind. It's rough, but it'll help you find what you're looking for. Ayahuasca is a sacred brew. It has been used for millennia by the indigenous tribes of the Amazonian jungle during spiritual ceremonies and shamanic rituals. It's a kind of tea made from the bark and stems of a tropical South American vine, sometimes mixed with other psychotropic plants. The name comes from the Quechua language, where aya means soul and huasca is vine, translation, vine of the soul. Ayahuasca contains a mind-altering compound called dimethyltryptamine, DMT, and is considered a sacred medicine, employed by serious spiritual seekers, not for recreational use. Ayahuasca's healing properties are currently being used in the treatment of PTSD, drug addiction, depression, and anxiety, among many other physical and psychological ailments. I do not condone, nor do I suggest, the use of ayahuasca or any substance without professional medical prescription and supervision. I struggled with the decision of whether to even share my journey with ayahuasca in this book. The only reason I'm writing about it here is because it's the truth of my experience. The room was dark. A small cabin, one room and a bathroom. Ancient Peruvian tribal chants and sacred melodies drone ethereally from a small speaker in the corner. Images of deities cover the walls. Handmade instruments are strewn around a wooden altar. Blankets, cushions, mats, pillows cover the floor. The shaman lives here. Her name is Beta, mid-40s. She reminds me of Meryl Streep if Meryl had moved to Peru on her 21st birthday to study botany and spiritual healing. She hands me a bucket and a small clay cup. The smell of the ayahuasca preempts my inquiry about the bucket. Beta takes her seat in front of the altar. We've had very little conversation, and I'm beginning to feel concerned that she may not be aware that I've never done anything like this before. I'd followed the basic instructions: no medications, drugs, or alcohol for 2 weeks prior, no food after 2 p.m. day of, no drinks after 5 p.m. Arrive at 7:30, in loose-fitting clothes, and ceremony at 8. But it seemed like she needed to be talking more. This feels too big for her to be just setting shit up casually. Hey, lady, I'm a little shook over here. I don't really know much about ayahuasca, I said. I did some personal research, but is there an orientation of the process or procedure? Beta smiled the smile of the initiated to the uninitiated. No, she said sweetly. To put it mildly, that answer left me somewhat unsatisfied. I just want to be clear about how and what I'm supposed to expect, I stumbled. The vine will lead you, Beta said reassuringly. Just surrender. Let yourself be guided. I'm only here to help you navigate the journey. I get that, I said, totally not getting it. So, what's my next thing? She pointed to the burnt orange clay cup. When you're ready. I drank the brew. 10 minutes, nothing. 25 minutes, nada. 40 minutes, zippo. Maybe it doesn't work on me. At an hour, the novelty of waiting had worn off. I figured I was immune. It was 9 p.m., and I realized I had agreed to do this stupid shit till sunrise. My little mat on the floor was comfortable, so I said fuck it, and went to sleep. When I woke up, I was floating deep in outer space. As I regained my bearings, I realized that I was trillions of light-years away from Earth. I was so far away that I knew I would never see anything, or anyone I loved, ever again. This is where I would be for eternity. As I digest the magnitude of my predicament, I begin to glide through the infinity of stars. I notice that they are not stars, as we know them. It is as if Picasso had painted outer space. Colors and cubes and angles, I am suddenly overwhelmed by the majesty of my surroundings. This is the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. As I am distracted in awe, I can sense a presence behind me. It's a woman. I turn to see her, but she is unseeable. I can feel the warmth of her energy, close behind me, as close as she could be without touching. She's happy I'm here, and I can tell she will never leave me. Somehow, I know she's been waiting for me. Her voice centers directly behind my right ear as if her lips were only millimeters away. I turn again, craving just a glimpse of this beatific goddess, but as I move, she moves. I can tell I'm not meant to see her. But I'm okay with that, because every second with her quenches my lifelong thirsts. She is everything: lover, teacher, mother, protector, guide. She is all I've ever dreamed of, and everything I've ever wanted. I can tell she knows everything I need to know and how to get everywhere I want to go. She is my goal, my solution, my answer. She is the top of the mountain, and the sky beyond. Where are we? I say to her softly. What do you mean, silly? She says, in a tone that melts away everything but bliss. This place is beautiful. I say. This is not a place, silly. She kept endearingly calling me silly. I've never seen anywhere more beautiful than this, I said. She laughs. Why does that make you laugh? I ask. This is you, silly. She said. Huh? What do you mean? This is not a place, this is you. My heart begins to race as I look around, bearing witness to the grandeur of this infinite paradise. Wait a minute, I say. All of this is me? Yes, silly. I'm this beautiful? Of course you are, she says. Her words unlock the emotional floodgates within me. I begin to sob and purge, a lifetime of insecurities, self-doubt, and inadequacies violently flushing out of me. Simultaneously, the revelation of my inner beauty fills my heart and mind with possibilities. If I'm this beautiful, I don't need #1 movies to feel good about myself. If I'm this beautiful, I don't need hit records to feel worthy of love. If I'm this beautiful, I don't need Jada or anybody else to validate me. If I'm this beautiful, and I have this internal sanctuary I can always return to, then I don't need anyone to approve of me. I approve of me. I am enough. This was my first tiny taste of freedom. An invisible yoke had been lifted from my neck. All of my needing and grasping and clinging and lusting and demanding and maneuvering and reaching and craving, all of the insatiable desires that had kept me on my hamster wheel of misery were falling away. I no longer needed to chase the proverbial carrot on the stick. I wasn't starving anymore. In my 50+ years on this planet, this is the unparalleled greatest feeling I've ever had. In the following 2 years, I did 14 ceremonies. In 8 of them, the woman I would come to know as Mother showed up, each time with detailed advice and instructions. 3 of the times that she did not appear were among the most hellish psychological experiences I've ever endured. In my second ceremony, Mother repeated, for what felt like 5 hours straight, "Stop talking." She said it so many times I wanted to bang my head on the floor. She was referring to the constant inner chatter that runs incessantly in my head, planning, strategizing, debating, assessing, critiquing, self-judging, questioning, doubting. She pummeled me with the phrase, thousands of times, "Stop talking." And at some point, just before sunrise, I noticed it, silence. My inner roommates had stopped talking. It was euphoric. Mother let me bathe in the peace of my inner quietude for about 40 minutes. Then, without words, she conveyed why I needed to stop talking. In essence, she told me I should be still, and I should be quiet, in order to better observe and understand the people and circumstances around me. She had watched me batter myself for so many years trying to impose my will on the world. Her point was, if I stopped talking and thinking so much, I could see and sense the universal tides and I could align my energies to them and achieve twice as much with half as much effort. I heard an echo of Gigi's words to me so many years before, you know, if you stop talking so much, maybe you could see some of those hits coming. Minimizing my talking became my practice for maximizing my awareness. I had always seen the world as my battlefield, I now understood that the true combat zone was my mind. 21. Love. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Idiopathic heart failure. Coronary artery disease. Atrial fibrillation. A normal heart ejection fraction is 55 to 60%. Dagio's is down to 10%. His long history of smoking, inhaling refrigerant, and exposure to toxic chemicals, combined with a lifetime of excessive alcohol use. So, how long? I said. You should come home. Dr. Alla Stanford had been our family physician for a few years now. She'd been wrestling with Dagio to make aggressive life changes to preserve and extend the quality of his golden years. Dagio had survived 2 heart attacks during my childhood. He would tell the stories as a badge of honor. For his second heart attack, he said he felt it coming on. His left arm gave out, so he drove himself to the hospital using only his right arm. When Dr. Alla would plead with him to change his habits, he would say, shit, if I stop smoking and drinking, I'll probably walk outside and get hit by a bus. So, how long, Alla? I asked. 6 weeks. I had just finished shooting Collateral Beauty. It is a film about a father who has to cope with the death of his daughter. As a part of my character research, I had spent the last 5 months doing a deep dive on the spiritual, psychological, cultural rituals and healing practices that help people face the profound suffering of losing someone. I met with priests, imams, shamans, rabbis, gurus. I read a ton of books on death. On Death and Dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Tibetan Buddhist teacher Sogyal Rinpoche, Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom, The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. Going into the role, I felt totally prepared and confident that I could accurately depict the triumphant arc from tragic loss toward perfect healing. I had been trying to find the solution to the agony of loss for my character, but now I was being forced to find it for myself. Dejo knew he was dying. His body was frail, his muscle had deteriorated. His skin draped over his bones like a shroud, his bluish-grey recliner set to its halfway position, Don Lemon muted in the background, Territon 100 in hand, less than a carton of cigarettes left in his life. Dejo had told Dr. Allah that he would either quit smoking or drinking, and she could pick. Based on his medication profile, she picked drinking. "Hey, man," he said, perking up as I walked in. "What up, Dejo?" I approached him to perform what had become our ritual greeting. He leaned forward, I palmed his bald head, and I kissed him where his bald spot used to be. 5 years earlier, Dejo's bald spot had become so prominent that I begged him to shave his head. "Come on, Dad, you rocking a homie the clown, that's not a good look." He fought me for over a year, until one day I cornered him on the set of Men in Black 3, wrestled him into a barber's chair, and cut his entire head bald. He loved it and wore his head that way for the rest of his life. The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying lays out the most critical tenets to supporting and soothing the transition of a dying loved one. The first idea that jumped off the page for me was that a dying person often needs permission to die. The book posits that sometimes a dying person will fight and struggle to stay alive if they don't have the sense that you are going to be okay without them. This can create horrific and painful final days. In order for our loved one to let go and die peacefully, they need to be explicitly reassured that we're going to be okay after they are gone, that they did a great job with their life, and that we can handle it from here. Similarly, Rinpoche states, a dying person most needs to be shown as unconditional a love as possible, released from all expectations. These concepts crystallized the mission in my mind. I was going to put aside all of my agendas, traumas, questions, and direct my full energies toward the most compassionate and merciful transition that I could tender. Around week 3, I arrived, standard head kiss. I took my seat on the floor. Chris Cuomo was muted today. Dejo's ability to eat was deteriorating. He had macaroni and cheese, braised beef, and broccoli, untouched in front of him. If Dejo isn't eating his mac and cheese, he must really not be feeling well. "Hey, Dad," I said nervously. "You did good." "What you mean?" he asked. "With your life." I don't think he was expecting to hear that. He took a pull of his Territon 100, turned his eyes back to the TV. He didn't seem like he was ready to go there just yet. But I was. "I'm saying you did great with your life. And when you're ready to go, I want you to know that it's okay. You raised me well. And I got it from here. I'm gonna take care of everybody you love." Dejo nodded his head, maintaining his stoic demeanor. His eyes welled yet never broke from CNN. But I knew he'd heard me. The soldier was gone. The ogre barely had enough strength to lift his spoon. He even needed my help to go to the bathroom. As a final attempt to maintain a semblance of his military dignity, he gave me detailed instructions on locking the wheels of his wheelchair, setting it into the perfect position adjacent to his recliner, being careful to close off the left footrest, leaving the right open for him to put his foot on, and the critical importance of placing my left knee outside of his right knee and my right knee straddled between his legs in order to safely lift and maneuver him, my right cheek positioned to his. Stepping back at 45 degrees to turn him and deposit him into his wheelchair. One night, as I delicately wheeled him from his bedroom toward the bathroom, a darkness arose within me. The path between the two rooms goes past the top of the stairs. As a child, I'd always told myself that I would one day avenge my mother. That when I was big enough, when I was strong enough, when I was no longer a coward, I would slay him. I paused at the top of the stairs. I could shove him down, and easily get away with it. I'm Will Smith. No one would ever believe I killed my father on purpose. I'm one of the best actors in the world. My 911 call would be Academy Award level. As the decades of pain, anger, and resentment coursed then receded, I shook my head and proceeded to wheel Dejo to the bathroom. Thank God we're judged by our actions, not by our trauma-driven, inner outbursts. I came to see him every week for the next month and a half. There is something strangely clarifying and cleansing about looking into the eyes of someone who has accepted their pending death. The awareness of death bestows profundity and clears all the bullshit out of the way. The finality of it all makes every moment feel infinitely significant. Every hello felt like a gift from God. We were both overwhelmed with gratitude that we got to see each other one more time. And then, every goodbye was complete and perfect because we were saying goodbye with the full knowledge that this might be our last. Every laugh, every story takes on weight and meaning in that simple fact. Death has a way of transforming the mundane into the magical. Hellos and goodbyes should be that way in our everyday lives because the reality is tomorrow is not promised. I began to embrace every hello with gratitude and to never take a goodbye for granted. The level of devoted focus, honesty, and compassion that Dadio and I shared became the aspirational model for love in my life. Dadio had been given 6 weeks, and he ended up living for 3 months. I remember on week 9 I made my trip to see him. Our meetings had been joyful and poignant, but today he is in an uncharacteristically despondent mood. Shirt off, Territon 100 in hand, hunched over his brown wooden folding tray, food untouched. Standard bald head kiss. Dadio, what's going on? He puts his cigarette down, pensively gazed out at the Ben Franklin Bridge arcing over the Schuylkill River. Man, Dadio said, you tell motherfuckers you can be dead in 6 weeks, and 9 weeks later you still hagging around. This shit is embarrassing. This was probably the second biggest laugh Dadio and I ever shared. Cut. About 10 days later, I was on the set of Bright, a Netflix fantasy action cop film directed by David Ayer. We were shooting in downtown Los Angeles. Joel Edgerton, my co-star, was behind the wheel of our patrol car. He was my partner in the movie. David Ayer approaches the window. Bro, you need to call your father immediately, he says softly. It's an emergency. Even when you're expecting these phone calls, it doesn't make it less jarring. My heart was racing. I dialed Dadio's cell. He answered. Hey, man. Hey, Dadio, what's up? I think it's tonight, he said. His words hit me like 1,000 volts. Okay, I said calmly. The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying had stressed the importance of making a calm space for the transition of loved ones. Do you want to FaceTime? I asked. Yeah. But shit, I don't know how to do that. I got you, I'll FaceTime you, I said. You just have to answer. Ellen, come do this FaceTime thing, we're about to call, he yelled to my sister who had just arrived. My cousin Ricky, a Philadelphia fireman who had been caring for Dadio, is holding the phone. It's 2 a.m. in an empty downtown LA parking lot. I stand under the brightest streetlight I can find. I want him to be able to see me. We simply look at each other. 20 minutes of silence. Finally, I hear my sister Ellen in the background whisper to Dadio, Dad, you're just looking. You don't have anything you want to say to Will? Dadio searches for one last piece of wisdom. One final brick. But he's empty. He slowly shakes his head, a final surrender. Shit, anything I ain't told this motherfucker already, he sure ain't gonna get it from me tonight. We shared a final laugh, we said goodbye, and 45 minutes later, Dadio was gone. One of the central and most critical tenets of filmmaking is know your ending. When you understand the emotional, philosophical, and moral conclusion of your movie, you can better craft everything that leads up to it. The comprehension of the physical plot and thematic endpoints allows you to reverse engineer a more resonant and enjoyable journey for the audience. The end of a film is similar to the punchline of a joke, you want the meaning to erupt in the hearts and minds of the audience. Imagine beginning to tell a joke without knowing the punchline. Life is like that. You're born into a bunch of characters, everyone's looking at you, you can't communicate, you can't walk, you can't feed yourself, yet everybody seems to be excited to see what you're going to end up doing. So, you begin telling your joke, with no fucking clue what the punchline is going to be. You're watching the audience. Sometimes they chuckle, sometimes they boo, but deep down inside they hope you land the punchline. In his final days, Dadio wasn't worried about Akrak. He wasn't worried about money, he didn't even care about food anymore. He had a single burning question about his ending: was my life useful? Daigyo needed to know that our lives were better because he was here. He wanted to be reassured that in spite of all of his shortcomings and fumbles and mistakes, that in the net analysis his assets outweighed his liabilities, and his life had been valuable. When Gigi died, it was a completely different experience. She had been so certain in her loving service and contribution to her family and her community and her commitment to God's children, that she was excited to go to heaven. To Gigi, God and love were synonymous, they were inseparable and indistinguishable. She worshipped God by loving others. Love was the only commandment that mattered to her. If you were being loving, you wouldn't need all the others. There was no negative energy around her passing whatsoever. Gigi was so completely fulfilled that I never even cried. She was ready to go and felt that her work here was finished. I got my first true glimpse into the secret of the smile. I had held a miscomprehension around the physics of ultimate happiness. I had thought that I could gain and win and achieve and conquer and acquire and succeed my way to love and happiness. 8 consecutive #1 hit movies, 30 million records, 4 Grammys, and hundreds of millions of dollars makes you happy, right? Makes people love you, right? The fundamental flaw of this theory is the belief that the smile comes from outside, that it is acquired or achieved from external sources or conditions. That someone will love you so much, they will adore you so deeply and thoroughly, that they will fill you with the bliss of the smile. Spoiler alert, there are no relationships, careers, or houses with a name that can fill the hole. There is nothing that you can receive from the material world that will create inner peace or fulfillment. The truth is, the smile is generated through output. It's not something you get, it's something you cultivate through giving. In the end, it will not matter one single bit how well they loved you, you will only gain the smile based on how well you loved them. The physics of love and happiness are counterintuitive. As long as we are stuck in the need to receive, in the cycle of grasping and clinging and demanding that people and the world around us meet our needs, we will be locked into disappointment, anger, and misery. The sweet paradox is being fulfilled by giving, that your output precipitates the input, giving and receiving become simultaneous. To love and to be loved is the highest human reward and ecstasy. Allowing the best within you to serve and unleash the best within others is the most intense of human pleasures. When I say love, I mean discovering, cultivating, and sharing your unique gifts for the purpose of uplifting and empowering your loved ones. The smile is a combination of the recognition of the unique treasure within yourself and the realization that the treasure is multiplied through giving it away. Everyone is struggling. Everyone is having a hard time. Life can be brutal, chaotic, confusing, and excruciating. Our hearts are starving. Loving, giving, helping, serving, protecting, nourishing, empowering, and forgiving are the secrets of the smile. Can you imagine what it would feel like if someone loved you, gave you all you needed, helped you, served you, protected you, nourished you, empowered you, and forgave you? For many of us, the answer to that question is no. But what Gigi knew, and what Nelson Mandela knew, what Muhammad Ali knew, and what Daigyo knew in his final moments, is that you must give it to receive it. Daigyo had poured all of his gifts into me. And at the end of his life, he saw that I had used them to build my life. He was fulfilled through his giving, and warts and all, he was content in how he had loved me. And then, by the grace of a benevolent Creator, in his final days, when he had nothing left, I was blessed to pour my gifts into him. Births, weddings, and funerals have a way of sifting the gold out of the dirt and the rocks. Daigyo's death served as a wake-up call for me. As Jada and I sat at his funeral, I became chillingly aware of the fact that one day, one of us would be saying goodbye to the other, and I questioned, what did I want our ending to be? Our time apart had helped us both to discover the power of loving in freedom. We are simultaneously 100% bound together, and 100% free. We agreed that we were both imperfect people, doing our best to figure out how to be in this world joyfully. What we needed from each other was unconditional love and support, not judgment, not punishment, but total, unbending devotion to each other's growth and well-being. We came to see our marriage as a spiritual discipline, what Bhakti Tirtha Swami called the ultimate school of love. This relationship is our classroom. We are learning to cultivate care, concern, and compassion in the most intimate and difficult of circumstances. There are few things in life more challenging than being married. The intimacy tends to stir up and expose our most poisonous inner energies. If we can learn to love here, we can love anywhere. The question is, can we love each other unconditionally, or is our love contingent upon the other person acting exactly as we need them to? It's easy to love somebody when they do what you want them to do, exactly how you want them to do it. But how do you behave when they step outside of your picture? How do you treat them when they hurt you? Those are the times that determine whether or not you actually love somebody. Love is hard. It takes enormous courage to open a wounded heart over and over again to the possibility of love's bliss. Like Charlie Mack always says, scared money can't make no money. Love demands bravery, a willingness to risk it all. But bravery does not mean the absence of fear. Bravery is learning to continue forward even when you're terrified. Jada and I agreed that we would ride together for this lifetime, no matter what. The jump. We're about to witness something that has never been done before. You've read about it, you've tweeted about it, and it's finally here. I'm Alfonso Ribeiro, and this is Will Smith, The Jump, coming to you from the Grand Canyon. Today, on his 50th birthday, he will face his fears and heli bungee jump over this jaw-dropping gorge. Now, to be clear, he is bungee jumping out of a helicopter 1,800 feet above the ground. I just got chills thinking about this. This is crazy. Yo, Alfonso, stop saying that shit like that. Charlie Mack barked. Charlie, I'm on the air right now. Live, Alfonso hissed. I don't give a fuck, Alf, stop making it sound like it's gonna go bad. Like it's too dangerous. But also, the weather here can be tricky at the Grand Canyon. We had lightning storms all day yesterday, but we have an experienced stunt team and aerial crew who is keeping track of the winds and the temperature. Okay, we're out, Alfonso. The producer yells. Seriously, Alf, I don't like your whole energy. Charlie, I'm doing my job. Will asked me to host. Alfonso said, chopping his right hand into his left. He wants me to build the suspense. Don't build no suspense that make it seem like he can die. That's where the suspense comes from, Charlie. So why are you heli bungee jumping over the Grand Canyon? When I first heard that question out loud, I thought, it's obvious. I'm in the wicked clutches of an anaconda of a midlife crisis. But I was live on YouTube, so I couldn't say that. Here's what I actually said. I've had an interesting relationship with fear my whole life. I've traversed the spectrum of fear reactions, from complete debilitation through inspiration and sometimes slipping into outright foolishness. But when the idea of heli bungee jumping over the Grand Canyon came up, I wasn't debilitated, and I sure wasn't inspired. All I could think was, this shit is stupid. My childhood Grand Canyon trip was a deeply meaningful experience. I've always remembered how beautiful it was, but I also remember how terrified I was to walk up to the edge. Harry even got close enough to drop his drum in it, but I stayed back, too scared to take in the full majesty. I've realized that for some reason, God placed the most beautiful things in life on the other side of our worst terrors. If we are not willing to stand in the face of the things that most deeply unnerve us, and then step across the invisible line into the land of dread, then we won't get to experience the best that life has to offer. So I've been making a conscious effort to attack all the things that I'm scared of. And this is scary. When Yes Theory challenged me to heli bungee, my heart jumped. And I've learned to recognize that feeling as a signal that the great gift has presented itself. As soon as my heart jumps, I'm in, I gotta do it. But I also can't be outdone, so when Yes Theory said heli bungee, I added, over the Grand Canyon, and on my 50th birthday. Everybody is here, Mom, Jada, Sherry, Trey, Jaden, Willow, Harry, Ellen, Pam, Ashley, Kyle, Dion, Gammy, Khalib, JL, Charlie Mack, Omar, Scotty and Ty, and on and on. As I took in the dueling landscapes of friends, family, and Grand Canyon, and saw the faces of the next generation, Harry's kids, Ellen's kids, Pam's, JL's, Charlie's, Omar's, Khalib's, Scotty and Ty's, I realized, I'm standing in the middle of my dream. This is what I've always wanted, everyone I love is here, together, as a family, and I had brought them to the Grand Canyon to witness the senseless and horrific death of their Uncle Will. I could hear the news reports. Will Smith, in what is presumed to have been a drug-induced psychosis, leapt to his death in a bizarre heli-bungee accident over the Grand Canyon early yesterday afternoon. He is survived by his wife, his baby mama, 3 children, a smorgasbord of nephews and nieces, extended family and friends, and a day hiker wondering what all the sirens were about. He was just 50. In a statement released by YouTube executives, Smith was described as a true American lunatic. End quote. But another thing happened. The kids got it. They seem to understand the necessity to confront and overcome the things that most terrify them. My niece Kayla held onto my leg as I approached the helicopter. And beyond the point where she could no longer follow, she screamed, "I'm gonna be brave like you when I grow up, Uncle Will." Alfonso, Willow, how do you feel about your dad going to do this? Willow, I just want him to do what makes him happy. And obviously I'm nervous, but this is what he wants and we're all here to support him, and I just want him to do what he loves. Trey, I'm just really happy he's doing what he wants to do. I mean, bungee jumping out of a helicopter over the Grand Canyon. I couldn't say I've ever heard of that done in history, so I'm looking forward. He taught us to just conquer fear. Jada, are you trying to terrify your children? Will, no. My kids don't get scared. Alfonso, what's Dad's biggest fear? Jaden, his biggest fear is having any fears. Alfonso, Will, you've been in this business for a really long time. And you have a lot of fans, and you also have some very famous fans, and they all wanted to say a little something to you. So, check this out. LeBron James, you about to bungee jump out of a helicopter into the Grand Canyon. Man, you got too far in life to be doing shit like that. Michael Strahan, just because you turned 50 doesn't mean you have to lose your mind. If you need to talk to somebody, you can talk to me anytime. Jimmy Fallon, I don't want you to do this. You still have time. You can back out of this. Throw a dummy out of the plane. Do anything. Quincy Jones, happy 50, bro. DJ Jazzy Jeff, now you got to go to the doctor and let them stick their thumb up your ass. Because that's what happens when you're 50. I know. Alfonso, yes. All right. Always inspiring words from Jazzy Jeff. I didn't want to know anything ahead of time. I wanted to walk up to the chopper, get briefed, and do the jump. I wanted to find out in real time, along with the audience, how it was all going to go down. Hey, Will, I'm TJ, your stunt coordinator. Let me run you through the basics. You're going to be jumping on a 200-foot active bungee cord. We've got multiple redundant safeties, chest, 2 to the waist. This cord is an engineering marvel, made from hundreds of individual strands of rubber coated to reduce friction and wear. More strands, more safety. Your body weight is 200 pounds, right? Well, minus the 18 pounds of fluid and other matter I'm currently shedding due to the crippling terror I'm experiencing, yes. You're going to put 3 gs into the cord, which when you multiply it by your weight, means you're going to put about 600 pounds of force on it. At the point of maximum stretch, you'll have fallen 550 feet, then you'll bounce several times before ending up hanging about 325 feet below the helicopter. Then we'll bring you back to the crash pad, unhook you, everybody sings happy birthday, and we head home. Any questions? Wait, hold on, I just had a terrible thought, I said. After this bungee cord stretches, isn't it going to throw me back up into the rotors of the helicopter? I hope not. TJ said, chuckling. Just kidding, that's impossible. As you accelerate under the force of gravity, you gain kinetic energy. The bungee cord stretches, absorbing that energy, but only some of it. The rest is lost as heat, due to friction and air resistance. This means the rebound can never be as high as the initial fall. Aight, cool, I figured it was totally safe. Well, there are fundamentals to bungee jumping, but this is heli bungee jumping, so there are subtle peculiarities that make it potentially a little more dangerous. For a start, instead of a stable position, the chopper is moving. The weather conditions have to be just right, and we can't be too close to any walls or ledges. But you are the X factor I'm most concerned about. This bungee cord weighs over 200 pounds. When we get up in the air, there will be 3 guys holding the weight to keep it off of you. But when they let it go, there's going to be about 800 pounds of pull, so you are going out of this chopper whether you like it or not. The only way you can get hurt is if when they let that cord go, you don't get away from this bird. I'm gonna count down from 5, and when I get to 1, you must jump. If that cord snatches you, it's all bad. I'm not jumping. But I'm probably going to get sued. I wonder how much the judgment will be. The average movie costs probably $40 million, so there's no way YouTube is paying more than $2 or $3 million to put this event on. Plus, what, $1 million in damages? So, when I walk away right now, it's probably a $4 million decision. I can live with that. But by then, TJ was attaching the bungee cord to my chest. Wait a second, it's not going to be attached to my back or my legs? Every bungee I'd ever seen was attached to people's legs. We're about the same age, TJ said. Do you remember the Nestea plunge commercial, where the people would jump backward, arms out, into a swimming pool? Yeah, I remember that one from when I was little, I said. When I get to 1, I need you to give me your best Nestea plunge. I have to jump backward. I'm harnessed up, double and triple checks have been completed. The whir of the chopper blade slowly increases. I move to take my seat in the helicopter. TJ stops me. Because of the weight of the bungee cord, I'm going to keep you on the outside, on the ski, TJ says. So, I'm going to be standing on the outside? When it takes off? I say, catching myself, realizing I'm an international action hero. Yes. Just get your feet firmly planted on the ski. You grab these 2 handles, hold onto them, and I've got you on a tether, TJ says, as if that was supposed to make me feel better about being on the outside of a helicopter while it takes off and then flies over the Grand Canyon. My next and perhaps most startling surprise came as the chopper began to lift off. There is something wildly disconcerting about hanging onto the outside of a helicopter as it takes off. We are 8 feet off the ground as the chopper gently banks to the right. I look down to make sure my feet are firmly planted on the ski when suddenly the ground disappears, and the 1,800-foot gorge reveals itself. My knees buckle under me. I tighten my grip on the steel handles bolted to the helicopter floor. Meant to tell you not to look down. TJ shouted, with a smile. I thought, what else has he forgotten to tell me? There's a red light just to my left. A cacophony of military gibberish squawks over the multiple open radios. Everybody is shouting over the thunder of the chopper blades and the percussive timpani that is my heart. I can make out a word here and there, altitude, copy, over, wind, check, storm. Storm? It would be terrible to nail the jump and then get struck by lightning. And then, green light. The red light in the chopper, which had been the Hoover Dam holding back the flood of this collective insanity, gives way and turns green. TJ, 6 inches from my face to be certain that there are no miscommunications, gives me the universal go sign, thumbs up. And then he shouts, "We are go." Do you copy? We are go. I give him one nod in the affirmative. And TJ begins the countdown. 5. TJ commands, aggressively showing 5 fingers. It really is true that your whole life flashes before your eyes when you think you're going to die. What if I leap to my death in front of my children? This would be a whack-ass way to go out, and the worst birthday ever. It would be the biggest YouTube special in history, so there's that. I probably should have thought about all this before now. I wonder what my kids would say at my funeral. 4. Me and Jada just started playing golf together. She loves it, she gets dressed for a round before the sun even comes up. After all of these years, we found something new we love doing. We're supposed to be playing tomorrow. I enjoy playing with her more than anybody. She's the best friend I've ever had. 3. Why is he counting so fast? 2. Look, I'm either gonna die, or I'm not. If God wants me today, ain't nothing I can do about it anyway. If I die, I'm not even gonna know. So, the real question is, how do I want to live? 1. About the authors. Will Smith is an actor, producer, and musician, and a two-time Academy Award nominee and Grammy and NAACP Award winner, who has enjoyed a diverse career encompassing films, television shows, and multi-platinum albums. He holds many box office records, including the most consecutive $100 million grossing movies, 8. He and his wife founded the Will and Jada Smith Family Foundation to improve lives by providing invaluable resources to accelerate the growth of initiatives that focus on deepening individual and collective empowerment in the areas of arts and education, social empowerment, health and wellness, and sustainability. Mark Manson is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of Everything Is F***ed, a book about hope and the subtle art of not giving a F***ck, a counterintuitive approach to living a good life. Manson's books have been translated into more than 50 languages and have sold over 12 million copies worldwide. Manson runs one of the largest personal growth websites in the world, markmanson.net, with more than 2 million monthly readers and 500,000 subscribers.